evening. I'd like to, you sure we're okay?
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
sorry. Okay.
7:02.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's the meeting of the Cohasset Board of Selectmen. It's Tuesday, September 2nd, 2014 at 7:00 p.m. We're in the Selectmen's office at Town Hall. And I'd like to invite everyone to stand in for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have two continued poll hearings, which are posted to start at 7:10. So usually there's some moments of figuring out what's next. If there's anybody here from the public that wishes to come up during public comment period and speak to a matter not on the agenda.
That would be me.
Okay. Mr. Bob Sylvia, 65 Forest Ave.
Robert Sylvia, 65 Forest Avenue.
Hello.
Good evening. What I'm coming to in front of you tonight about is the base of the flagpole on the common. With the 9/11 ceremony coming up a week from Thursday, the base of the flagpole was in disrepair. The water intrusion had caused part of the concrete to buckle, basically to fall off. It's the base of the flagpole is now 100 years old. I think the plaque on it, I believe, says 1915. If my eyes don't deceive me here, if I can read that. And over the years, it has been patched and repatched and repatched, and it's multiple different colors because of it. And as good as Brendan St. John is, and he's pretty much a magician when it comes to this stuff, he couldn't match the concrete perfectly. So now we have another situation where the concrete is multiple colors on the base. So what I'd like to ask the board for permission to do at this point, on the advice of Brendan, is to paint the base with a paint that will seal the concrete, so that the water intrusion will stop on the concrete, and the concrete will then stop falling apart. And maybe we can keep this base of the flagpole for another 100 years. So what I have here is a paint color that Brendan picked out. Obviously, it's close to, it's basically going to be close to a concrete color. And I'll circulate this photo for you guys on that paint chip. And again, this was on Brendan's advice that we paint it with a paint that was thick enough to seal all the cracks. And as you can see, he tried to seal most of the cracks. And there are multiple different colors because of it. So it is what it is at this point. I don't think we're looking to replace it, but we'd like to try and do some maintenance to it so that it will last at this point.
What about any moisture that's in the concrete?
Brendan said he's not worried about that right now. It's, in essence, as long as we don't paint it the day after it rains, there won't be a problem. He's had no problem. In fact, that cement that he put on there at the end of last week has cured enough at this point to be painted and won't be a problem.
So what, I'm sorry, Karen, I'll give you this in a
That's
sec,
fine, no
but are they painting literally down to the dirt?
Yeah, it would be one color on the entire base
And it would go all the way up?
to the base
where
of
the
the pole
flagpole
itself.
is.
So basically we would seal the entire concrete base with a paint that will seal it.
And what's the future upkeep on that?
Have to paint it every once in a while as the paint, anybody that's had pool decks or anything else is it. It'll be a water-based paint because they don't use oil anymore. But he said it was a paint that was of a consistency that it would seal all the cracks. That was one of the biggest issues that he had, was to attempt to keep the water from seeping down into those cracks so that it freezes and then spalls and it falls apart some more.
Is it like a marine paint?
It would be like a marine grade paint, yes.
Yeah.
So it would be something that, again, this was Brendan, and this is what he does. So this was his thought that this would be the way to make this last and make it one uniform color.
I can understand Brendan's, he's gonna know better than probably any of us what the consistency should be to do all that. My kind of aesthetic hesitation is that, to me, that doesn't look, it'll look like a painted foundation as opposed to a stone foundation, which personally, is more attractive. But how patchworky is it? Is it just that one area near the?
Well, over the years, there's been other areas that have been that have had to been repaired. So, again, this is,
Looks like a
Is this gonna be painted the whole place?
he would, I actually have another photo, but this was on a different topic, but you can see the whole base in that photo. And that would be, basically, everything that's concrete would be a uniform color. So from that regard, Diane, you're absolutely right. It would be a uniform color.
Whose idea
Could
was?
be pink, it's whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, I was
It
just
would
gonna say,
be-
whose idea was it to bring paint chips in front of the Board of Selectmen? I mean-
Well, we talked about it, and I'm
just
like, I'm not
pulling
making
you.
a call on this.
No, I'm just messing with you, cause.
Well, look, I mean,
Yeah.
I walked up there myself, and there was a big chunk that was just missing, right? And it needed to be fixed. I mean, it wasn't gonna fall down tomorrow, but we're having a ceremony there, and it should look nice, and the bench had to be fixed anyway. There was a problem with the bench, so.
What was the problem with
it
the
had
bench?
been
Do you know?
knocked.
We think that it might have just been bumped by one of the mower decks. There wasn't enough space between the pole base and the bench for the mower decks to go through. So not only did he fix the bench, the footing on the bench, but he moved it out so that there's plenty of space for the mower decks to go between the pole and the bench, and that won't happen again.
I noticed it was
Yeah,
a little.
and Brendan is pretty quick and pretty smart guy. The base of that, as you look at that bench, underneath the bench, it looks like a concrete footing. He's actually putting bluestone in there, so there won't be any need to weed whack around the bench or do anything else. They'll be able to just drive around with the mower deck and do the maintenance that they need to do and not spend the time around it, so. That was his idea. Seemed like a good idea to me, so.
Did you say they would plaster in where those chips have come off, so that's plastered in? And
Yeah,
then
everything,
painted
he
over?
has pretty much sealed everything at this point. Other than, obviously, the minute cracks, that's where the problem is. The water intrudes in through those cracks, and there's really no way to do that short of what he's suggested with the paint.
If it's gonna be done in advance of the ceremony, it needs to be done now. If you don't wanna do it and think about it, or send us to the historical commission, that's fine. The Cohasset, I don't know if the Common Historic District would wanna take a look at that or
I think
not.
they have to.
I don't know, when I met with the chairman at one point, he was kind of ambivalent about little things like this, though the base is a big base. So, I mean, again, it's just a maintenance thing, it's been fixed, it's now, it looks much better than it did. But if that's where you wanna go, that's fine.
Those
I'm happy to
plaques
take
are
it.
facing into the common too,
Correct.
Yes,
so
they are.
that's where the, kind of the breach is and where it looks bad
Absolutely.
is.
Yeah, well, that's been fixed, and there's no chunk missing anymore showing rebar, that's
I
good.
think that maybe you should inform the chair that,
That's fine.
Even as a courtesy.
yeah.
I understand the context of the comment, how important it is, and
People are very.
which is the reason you're
I
even
mean,
talking about it tonight.
is-
so.
People are always very concerned about anything historical,
Yeah.
as you know, so, just
I-
touching bases.
Yeah. I mean, I understand the desire to have it look nice for the ceremony. I'm just concerned about a painted surface and how it's going to change the entire appearance.
That's a fair point.
For what it's worth, I think it's the Washington Monument has three different kinds of granite on it.
That's right.
And you look
Yeah,
up
but
and down.
it's
it's different.
granite and not paint.
So, but it comes as a different.
Yeah, but
because
that, I
it's-
mean, that is a little bit of an eyesore, I totally get it. I'm reluctant too, I don't know if anybody's wants to make a motion.
I tell you what, guys, you're right, never bring paint chips.
Why
I
didn't you
really?
Why didn't you just
I
put
just should've
draperies
said
up and ask
paint
for
it.
a vote?
Until we switch to all men, maybe.
The fact of the matter is that it's concrete, guys, it's not granite. I wish it were granite, it's not. It's concrete, and you let it go, and you let water intrude on it, and it eventually will crumble and fall apart, and you'll have a
Right.
much bigger discussion on your hands. No, paint's not perfect, but I don't know that there's another way to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, my only suggestion is, could we please keep it somewhere close to the color of concrete? Other than that, it's almost 7:10. We're talking about paint chips.
Sounds amenable to me.
So I'm willing to entertain a motion, and if anybody wants one to let the professionals go ahead and paint. Anyone want to make a motion?
And we will touch base with the
Yeah.
Common
I was
Historic
gonna
District Commission, absolutely.
make sure.
I'll
I-
make a motion that we touch, that our fire chief will make a contact with the historic district commission, and that we approve painting to further stem the erosion of the concrete.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Okay.
Could you repeat the motion? It's very difficult to hear.
The motion was that Bob Sylvia would contact the Cohasset Historic Commission to see if there are any concerns there, and barring none, would go forward with a sealing and painting of the concrete base of the flagpole. Is that a good enough
That's good
representation
enough,
of the
yeah.
motion?
I mean, you should repeat my motion, yeah.
So would that be the Common Historic District Commission or
Mhm.
the,
Yes.
so not the Historical Commission?
Correct.
No, historic district
Cohasset
commission.
Common
And
Historic
will they be
District.
meeting in time for 9/11?
Well,
No.
we'll contact the chair, that was the motion.
Contact the chairman.
Gordon Stevens.
As a courtesy, yeah. Contact the chair, I believe it's Gordon Stevens.
Yep. Yeah, next Thursday. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. I'm gonna say nay.
I'll send you a review, Diane.
3-2.
Read it too.
I understand, I'm just real hesitant about it.
I have a thing with paint colors.
And very, very quickly, the other point was that the bench has been relocated again, and this is very quick, and this is for another day. The Trinidad family has offered to purchase additional benches. They do realize that that one bench kind of sits by itself alongside of the flagpole, and maybe if we did something to balance it, it might look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. They've offered to do whatever we'd like to do. I thought about that one faces almost due east. If we were to put one behind it to the north and one to the other side to the west and leave the face that faces the church as it is, that might work. So something to chew on, nothing to discuss tonight, but we can talk
And,
about that at a further.
Yeah,
at a
one of the
later
things,
date.
we are gonna be discussing monuments throughout town and that sort of thing, probably in the next couple of meetings, so I will let you and/or the Trendowitz family know.
You can work through me if you'd like.
We'll do
That'd be
so.
fine. Okay, very
Okay.
good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
I know where she lives.
Okay, so we have a poll hearing, and I have been in the habit, Martha?
I guess the folder.
Oh, good, do you have the hearing notice from a few weeks ago? I'm sorry.
You can look and see what I have. And she has it.
Thank you, sorry about that. So just, the first poll hearing, which is scheduled to start now, is on Cedar Street. So I just want to make sure we all stay on the same arena of polls. The Cohasset Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, July 1st, 2014, which has been continued to tonight, Tuesday, September 2nd, at 7:10 in the Selectmen's Office, Town Hall, 41 Highland Ave, to consider the request for 4 35-foot Class 4 poles with 2 anchors and down guys with an 8-foot lead. All 4 poles will be located on the south side of Cedar Street. New poles will be across from existing poles 32, 42, 54, 55. Anchors will be off poles, new poles 32 to 84 and 42 to 84. This pole installation is requested from the Massachusetts Electric Company and Verizon New England Inc. The public is invited to offer public input on this proposal in writing in advance of the public hearing or in person at the hearing. And for those of you that have been paying attention over the last, we've been discussing this for, I think this is our 4th meeting, and I hope we can resolve some of this tonight. There has been other proposals or adjustments to this particular poll schedule that was in the original notice, and I would like to invite the gentleman up from National Grid to walk us through where we're at on Cedar Street.
I think we're at the same spot, right, Billy?
Yeah.
I think we have to, I guess you had notes of the letter, that I had for the, arborist. I believe he's here tonight.
Neil?
Yeah.
I'm here from the town, I represent the town, I'm the tree warden for the town of Cohasset, and they discussed it with me, and we've gone over
That's
it back and forth. I gave you some,
Sit down.
on why I wanted to
Yeah,
start.
Andy, would you mind grabbing a chair and just
Sure.
kind of joining in the conversation?
Get one for you.
That's okay?
All right, thanks. Yeah, and I met with Neil, we discussed this, I guess you guys have been talking about it for quite a while, week on week, and I recommended the stub bolts just to save some of the trees that they wanted to remove. I think Cedar Street has a very nice canopy, nice trees and things, and I'd hate to see 6 trees removed rather than, was it 2? As for, how it's gonna look, I think the best thing to do is kind of go out there and really look at and see what's going on, with each proposal we're gonna, come across. That's what I have to say.
Forgive me, you were asking for tree trimming, and I seem to remember reading in a note here that what you were asking for was pruning of several and removal of 2.
I wasn't sure, what did we ask for, Billy?
Neil wrote,
think-
no.
I think when the arborist went out there, he found a little more than what he
Yeah,
expected.
it's about 5
I think that's
trees.
what happened. He's a little more than I do. I was figuring there was 2 branches that were in the way. Take the tree down, that would be fine. I know one other location where the tree's right next to the
Pole 55?
Yeah,
Yes, that's
that
a
one
multi-
there, can we remove that one?
That's a multi-stemmed oak, it's about 3 oaks, it's a lot, and that's why I recommend the stub poles across the street, kinda save, some of these trees.
And just to catch you up, Andy, one of the things, we were reluctant, and I think some of the neighbors in town were reluctant to just add more poles, and that's
Yeah,
where this
I
conversation's been
understand.
trying to go, and in the case where there are trees that are, and we all appreciate the canopy and
Yeah.
having trees in this beautiful town, but, that in some cases, they, if they're not maintained, or they have a dead branch, or whatever, they're actually causing more of a hazard, which
Yeah.
is where we started taking this conversation. Kara, did you wanna?
Well, I just, in the letter we just got tonight before we sat down, so I apologize, I'm not fully up on it, but it seems like at pole 55, trimming, and then to put the stub across the street, they'd have to take a tree down across the street.
They're gonna have to severely prune a small oak.
And it says take it removed.
Oh, maybe it is small, okay, all right.
Okay, and the same thing at pole 42?
Yes, yeah, that is gonna be another
Some,
removal.
would be required small trees, need to be, yeah.
Yeah, so to put the stub pole in, we'd still have to take down
Yes.
a tree. Okay, so is there like a hierarchy that one tree is
More sacrosanct than another?
more desirable? It's either in a better position, or it's healthier, or,
I would probably say the trees that are across the street are probably healthier, because the trees that where the poles are now have been trimmed quite a bit. So, they would be in fair to good condition, rather than the ones across the street, I would say were in better condition, because they haven't really been trimmed.
so if we took down the trees at 55 and 42, we wouldn't need a stub pole, am I correct?
No.
And we'd be saving the healthier trees across the street.
One of the healthier trees, yeah.
Well, there's,
We gotta make these trade-offs
Yeah.
Yeah.
at some point.
yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to.
I know, it's
I mean,
the
if it was
battle
like,
of both. There's
no trees were
great
gonna
answer.
come down, that's easy. But if a tree is older, or there's more likelihood that it could be damaged in a storm, rather take that one down than.
Could I join the conversation? Joe Carroll, National Grid.
Welcome
Madam
aboard.
Chair,
Thank
sorry
you.
to interrupt,
That's okay.
but I think there is some future looking in terms of leaving some of the other trees there, that there may be issues down the road impacting the reliability of some of the wires, especially in the sector. Not putting a stub pole, but allowing that tree to be taken down. If we have to go to the stub pole, we still will have to come back to 2 of the poles in question, because of the concern of the trees growing around the primaries. We'll still return to that position. So as you balance that judgment, from that end, get the trees, as the arborist said, trees on the other side, probably healthier than the ones there, but the ones on that side, if we have to do the stub and leave it on that, we will be back in the future, because there will be issues on the primary.
So if we
Right.
sacrificed the trees by the existing poles, we would not need to put new poles in,
New stubs,
The
right?
stub poles, right,
new stub poles.
across the street.
Yeah, but that's at 2, that's 55 and 42.
Those are the 2 major issues that we were looking at.
Okay, and then the other one is,
We would have brought chips in the poles, but
I have to tell you, I'm so confused right now, so I just wanna.
All right.
alright,
So-
so the other,
Go ahead, Sharon, I'm sorry.
no, I'm sorry, so that's 55 and 42, so 54. Wait a minute,
Not
so
on the list.
54 will still, there'll be
Yeah,
a
that
new
needs-
pole?
That needs a new pole, that's.
And that
that's
doesn't
a
involve
back
any
corner.
trees or,
There's no tree, I don't think it's tree trimming there.
okay. So instead of 3 instead of 3 stub poles, we're down to 1 stub pole.
I don't know, what did you come up with down the
That?
street at that other one, that's where the
Well,
oak
there was
is right behind the
55.
tree, yeah.
And then right down the street, there was
Yeah.
44, I think it was.
54.
That's the other one where,
That's when we have to remove the other tree across the road too.
yeah.
Yeah. You know,
42.
I mean, you're gonna have to remove the tree across the street to put the stub pole in.
And the stub pole, by you that you mean the shorter pole than
Yeah,
a regular
yeah,
telephone
to
pole?
brace it from,
And that's essentially the difference between the stub pole and the main pole, it's a lot shorter.
Yeah,
and
It just holds the
I-
corner, it holds the corner. It doesn't have power to it unless there's a street light on it.
Support.
Okay. I think I'm okay on it now.
I
And
live-
Andy, you're okay with those 2
Yeah.
trees coming down?
yep,
You sure?
yeah.
Okay. You know I love trees.
I love trees too, but I mean,
We all
it's,
do.
what are we gonna do? We gotta
love
balance
trees.
it out?
Which one do you want us to do now? You want 55? We can remove those.
Yeah.
At 55, the street, I'll ask him not to do as much, you know. and
Forgive me.
He knows very well.
I'd love to see this, but let me just clarify what you're proposing.
Mhm.
You're proposing no stub pole at 55 because you'll be removing the trees where the existing 55
That's
sits.
Yes.
Is
Correct.
that
That is
right?
correct.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then 54 still will be
Still
stub.
needs it, still needs a stub.
Okay. Thank you. On to 42.
Yeah, and that would be, Billy, how far back was that? That was like
8 foot off it.
8 foot off the road.
Right.
And the lady the owner of that property is gonna give us an easement.
Right, that was the, okay. Now, moving on to 42.
So,
What does that require?
That requires,
Like tree trimming, but if it can't, we'll have to put a stub pole there also.
No, I recognize that, but what's the optimal solution?
Leaving the pole in place without the stub, I think from a future
So,
perspective.
But 42, did we need just to trim that one?
No,
There's quite a bit of,
said it would need to be removed.
quite a bit of work
yeah.
back
So-
there in the back side of it.
Yeah.
Andy, forgive me, but let me interrupt, let me just ask the question, because I know where most of these poles are, but I haven't cataloged the trees yet. So, is that the one, is the multi-trunked oak?
55 was the multi-pole.
Okay, so 42 is what?
42 was some heavy pruning in the back side, moving some big leaders out of some oak trees.
Okay,
To
but
set up there.
would it desperately harm the oak by pruning it?
Yeah, I think it would.
Okay.
I mean, but do you want a stub pole? You know, I don't know.
There are two things at hand here. One is, as you know, Cedar Street is very narrow.
Yes.
Okay, and there are you lose any focus or attention driving on your way to the dump, and you could kiss a tree, you could kiss an electricity pole, you could kiss a couple of mailboxes or a stone wall. So we don't want to narrow the road if we can avoid it. And likewise, and equally as important for modern day living, we've got to make sure that we do everything we can to make sure that the utility services are reliable. So if we're going to keep the trees off the lines, it means we're going to have to trim them anyway. And that's where I'm going with this. What is the toss-up? Is the tree going to die if it is pruned under your supervision? I mean, because of the pruning.
It very well could be, because you're gonna be
Okay.
taking a lot out of it. But like
Okay.
you said, we don't wanna narrow Cedar Street anymore.
And at some point,
And you're
Okay,
gonna do
so-
more work, so you're probably better off not doing the stub pole across and doing the pruning.
Well,
That's-
at 42, National Grid's arborist is saying that, one town tree at pole 42 would still need to be removed due to its proximity to the power lines,
if we added a
If
stub
you had
pole.
a stub
if
pole.
you had a stub pole.
Yeah.
So I guess,
So
my,
it's-
my question again comes back to Andy, is which tree is the more desirable to,
Sophie's choice.
I would probably save the one across the street, because it hasn't been trimmed yet, with the wires and things.
okay.
Okay.
So,
So no stub pole at 42, tree comes down,
or heavy pruning.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can work with Neil.
With Neil.
Yeah, work with him, and he can, you know what you need, you want done.
Sure.
And you two can work together to satisfy everybody.
Okay, so, do you want me to take a crack at where I think we're at with these 3 Cedar Street poles, and then I'll entertain a motion? So right now, we would at, pole 55, there would be trees removed, no stub pole added.
Yeah,
At 54, we would add a stub pole, and where National Grid's working to get an easement on a person's property, because it's set 8 feet back. So whatever motion we do would be subject, of course, to that easement. And then pole 42, the tree there would be heavily pruned.
Yes.
Maybe taken down if it gets to a point
Yeah.
where it's too dangerous. And there would be no stub pole.
that's correct.
All right, is that the board's understanding?
I understand,
Yes.
And, so we need to grant an easement also on Cedar
Not on
Street?
these yet.
Yeah.
There's another one coming.
There was one other pole, but that was on town property, which
Pole
we were gonna
40?
get a push brace
Pole
for, so that
32.
eliminated that stub pole.
Okay, so we don't need to do that anymore?
That's 32,
42?
right?
32.
32. So we, oh, but you were, Chris, were you saying that we can't do?
No, I
grant the
talked to
easement?
Carl, he was fine. with
No, but
doing
what
it.
about the easement?
Town meeting will eventually have to grant it.
Okay.
But you have to start the process going.
Oh, 32,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. All right, for Cedar Street,
So there's 4 on Cedar Street,
That didn't affect any trees.
right? So what we don't have
No,
is
no more.
new information on the, 32 we're not doing at all?
No.
No, you-
Don't put a
Okay.
push brace there.
yeah,
Okay.
you're still approving what they're proposing, and then it has to go in front
But
of
we
town
don't
meeting to
need it-
grant the easement. so.
Do we need to grant an easement?
The
Yeah.
Only town meeting can grant the easement.
Only to, but I mean.
But if
it's
you support
subject-
it, then it'd be subject to town meeting's approval.
Okay.
okay. All right, is there anybody from the public that's here to discuss the polls on Cedar Street? Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 5-0. Okay, now, does anybody want to make a motion for the resolution of the Cedar Street polls?
I'll take a stab at it if you want. I move that pole 54, a new stub pole be put in place. At pole 55, the tree be removed, and what happens?
No stub.
Straight,
No,
straight,
no.
No stuff.
we'll just
Okay.
straighten out line.
You just straighten the lines, okay. Okay, at 42, the tree either is removed or undergoes heavy trimming, and there'll be no stub pole. And all of this is subject to the granting of easements by Mr. and Mrs. Slamp and town meeting for the town of Cohasset. Is that correct?
Actually, you left out identification of pole 32.
The town of Cohasset
For
easement would be
32.
for pole 32.
For 32. And that. All right,
Okay.
never mind, somebody else take a.
No, I think you did fine.
Oh, you had it. You had it.
Yeah,
You
we got
only-
it, we're there.
We're there?
We got it, Tracy?
Yeah.
Tracy says we're there, we're there.
Pole 32,
Okay,
you
is
only
there a
tell
second
me.
of the motion?
Yeah, second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Done. There's for nothing.
All right.
Okay. Thanks. Okay.
Anyone home?
Well, no, the other street, we don't have a problem.
The second continued poll hearing, which is scheduled for 7:20, or just a little bit over. The Cohasset Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, July 1st, 2014, which has been continued to tonight, in the Selectmen's Office, Town Hall, 41 Highland Ave, to consider the request for 3 35-foot Class 4 poles and 3 anchors with down guys, all with 6-foot leads, The 3 poles at anchors with down guys will be located on the south side of Jerusalem Road, opposite poles 122, 129, 137. This pole installation is requested from the Massachusetts Electric Company and Verizon New England, Inc. The public is invited to offer public input on this proposal in writing in advance of the public hearing or in person at the hearing. Okay, give us 10 seconds to get our,
So were there any tree issues on Jerusalem Road?
We just had that one.
private property.
That private
Private
property.
property.
Yeah,
He
the
gave us-
sycamore.
yeah,
It was in really heavy decline.
Yeah, he gave us permission to do it.
Okay.
and that's on the Geyer's property? No?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was the,
Who was it?
McNeil,
What's the number of the house?
752.
750.
Oh, 137. Okay.
Is this a typo, because after 122-84, you have anchor and guy wire for pole number 22. Did they leave out the
Typo.
one?
Typo.
Just wanna make sure.
My fault.
Lots of numbers. All
I'm
right.
gonna scold
Oh,
him
can we
later.
we can release Andy then, we didn't have any,
Yes,
anything
Andy,
else?
thank you
Andy.
very much.
Andy, thanks for coming in.
you all.
Thank you, Andy.
Appreciate you being here.
Have a nice
Thank
week.
you.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Andy, thank you.
You're welcome.
You can leave
Hope
that
I was a
there.
help.
Yeah, just to make sure, we'll have to touch base with the,
Yeah, that'd be great.
make sure we do.
Okay.
You were a help, thank you.
All right, good night. Welcome.
Okay. Do you want to summarize where we're at on Jerusalem Road?
Okay, at pole 122, we're still looking to have you grant us a petition for pole 122. The anchor and guy wire will be on private property,
Mm-hmm.
so we'll be looking for an easement for the anchor and guy wire.
Meeting. Who,
The easement is from 685?
It's either 662 or 666.
662?
662.
well, didn't you get an easement before? Last week?
That was in
We know, we've already approached him, and he said he would give us one, so we just have to do
You
the
didn't
final
list,
paperwork.
you didn't list his name, was it last time?
Yes, his name is Mr. and Mrs. Gaia, I believe.
Oh, Gaia,
It's on the
it's
front
back
page of this
Okay,
email.
Yeah.
okay, all right, yeah.
Got
okay,
carried over.
I'm sorry.
I confused you,
Apologize.
Martha.
No, that's all right. That's good, so
Yeah,
that's
like I
taken
said, this,
care-
doing this would eliminate, right now, there's an aerial trespass across 666. This will take care of all that.
Yeah,
Okay.
no problem,
Okay, and then,
129.
So that is an additional pole.
Yes.
Yes.
He's concerned with the code.
This is the last meeting.
Yeah,
Right, can we
okay.
maybe leave that one for last?
Yeah.
and then poll. So poll 122 is the Geyer easement.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Poll 129, there's an easement request from John and Robert McNeil.
No, that's at pole 137. Yep. Pole
Yeah,
129.
It's just, it printed out funny, I think.
Yeah.
That's
We'll
all.
have to-
I've got it here.
That's the one we're gonna do, the
Okay,
last one. we're
I think
doing.
our map might be a little more
Right.
explanatory.
Well, I have, this is,
Okay.
past meeting,
Oh,
I've got everything
just
listed.
doing the new one. So do I, but I don't remember.
Okay. All right, and then, so poll 137, there's an easement request out
Yes,
from
yeah.
O'Neill, okay?
Yes.
Yeah,
2 O'Neill.
To O'Neill,
well, yeah,
to get a grant, have an
okay,
easement from O'Neill,
yeah, okay.
get your
So
prepossessions.
both the pole and the anchor will be on private property.
Okay.
And does 129 require an easement from you?
At the moment, there's been
No,
a change
no,
of
no,
construction on
No,
that.
that
so-
hasn't changed. We've eliminated that. We've met Mr. Tebow, we went over everything, our options. We've come to what we're just gonna replace the pole with a bigger class pole. And
So 129 gets replaced.
just gets
Yes,
replaced
clean.
now, and that's it.
Yep.
Okay.
Tree guy will get removed.
Yeah, tree guy will come out of this tree.
So it'll be a freestanding pole at this point?
Appreciate it.
So the poles, and the new pole's not gonna be in there anymore, and then the lines will go straight to their houses, these two houses, 706 and 708? And that's satisfactory to
Well,
everybody?
actually, that pole 129 is giving service to house, I
Yeah,
think,
to both them
715.
houses, I believe.
So it is a drop that comes to 706 and 704.
129 is the one,
Across the street.
but it has a long
Yes,
run
is a
across a lot.
Correct,
Right,
yes.
okay.
So this new pole is just stronger, and it's gonna
Just
be able to
stronger.
carry the
It's gonna be
load
a bigger-
better.
it's gonna be a
Solves the
bigger
problem?
pole.
Yes.
Yeah.
Solves the problem?
There'll be no
Um,
stub, no stub on the other side.
No stub, no need, so there's visibility.
Can I ask
Yep.
clarification as to what bigger means? Is it
It's
more circumference or
class-wise,
is it higher?
class-wise, we've gone up, 2 classes on it.
What is
Which
class a
it's just a little
circumference
bigger-
designation?
Yes, I think it's 17.
It's not extending
Yeah.
any further into the street, it's
Yeah.
not, it's in the same
It's
spot.
in the same
It's not
spot.
gonna be higher.
No, 40,
No.
same, I
It's
left
not
them
high.
all the same height.
Is it gonna
But-
look any different? It's so funny
No.
because
No.
now, after all these hearings, I was just in Colorado and they have these massive, like everywhere I look, I see
That was
telephone
probably
poles.
It won't be like that.
Yeah,
That's-
okay.
Yeah, it won't
But
be
it-
like that.
Aesthetically, no one's gonna
Just-
notice.
Just to be clear about it, a classification, a class
Yep.
is a designation for circumference of the pole,
Yes.
Yeah.
right?
And the
Class,
strength.
a class
Yep.
4 pole is what in circumference?
Let me see, class 1, I believe, is 12 inches in diameter. I think this is about 13.
Oh,
The one that you're going to be
Yeah, the
using?
one I'm gonna install.
okay.
You're not
And
stepping up in a big,
So
big
replacing
number.
12
Yeah,
and
it's not
13.
going
Okay.
really huge.
From a visual.
It's not an order of magnitude.
Alright.
Yeah, and what happens with
Okay.
the upper class of the pole, it kind of like almost, it doesn't taper off as much as it does with a lower class pole. The thickness of the pole kind of like tapers off very gradually.
Okay.
It's a more sturdier pole.
Okay,
Height is the same.
Great,
okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Where that pole was gonna go, there's trees, was there ever any consideration, I guess you don't need to anyways, is putting those wires right where those trees are, and, you know, hooking them onto the trees with a guy? I mean, you don't need, that's not even feasible?
No,
No.
it's against the National Electric
Yeah,
Safety
it's
Code.
against-
Can't attach any live electrical conductors to live vegetation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Anybody from the public wanna speak? Mr. Tebow?
I just want to say,
If you don't mind coming up and just identify yourself.
Tyler Tebow, 706 Year's Road. I just want to say thank you to National Grid for working with us on this and coming up with a solution that benefits everyone. And we're satisfied with this solution.
Terrific, that's what
Good,
we like
thank
to
you
hear.
very much.
All right.
Thank you for.
It's,
Alright.
and-
Not to,
We will not paint it gray.
if this will work in this situation, why wouldn't it work in other situations?
Which,
Well, if by using a bigger pole, you eliminate the need for.
where this pole is, there are not trees right beside it. On one of the other poles on the previous that was on it, even replacing, there was going to be a tree right there, so. From this type of, is that why you're asking why we can do it on this one?
Well, I'm just asking if upping it a different class enables you to eliminate the need for another stub pole or guy wire or anything, why wouldn't that work on all the other ones?
Well, this particular pole happens to be an inline pole, which the wires are already straight on it on the top.
Okay.
Okay, that just has a single phase going off, and actually, looking at it better, the telephone has small drops on it. They're like I think they're a half-inch flat that go, so it's not as much weight as.
So this pole is not being pulled on as a corner pole?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
Yeah. It's being pulled on by us, but we can eliminate it by doing this.
Right. Okay.
All right, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing on the polls for Jerusalem Road.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Okay, the hearing's closed. And now, who's gonna try the motion?
I'll do it.
Go ahead.
Let's see here. Moved that the board grant the request by Mass Electric and Verizon to install stub poles at 122.
Is it a
And-
stub pole or an anchor and a guy?
No, it's a stub pole.
The anchor's going right in front.
Got it.
Right, and 137 pending a an easement from the property owner, and the entire replacement of pole 129.
What about the 128, what's meaning?
Two easements though, right?
I'm gonna add that, and that's one if you
There's
Yeah,
no-
that was,
there's no request to do that on
Who
here.
was that?
No,
That's the one that was leaning.
over and above.
Yeah.
That's
a
being
separate
taken
issue.
care of
That will be
by
taken care of.
by the local, Mass Electric.
Okay.
How is that being taken care of, eh?
Yeah.
I actually went down there and looked at that, and you
Hold
look on
on,
the
guys.
road, those poles are fairly straight, that pole.
Yeah,
is leaning
it's bent over. I don't know, Chris Raymond's gonna go out, sending somebody out there, probably replace it.
Okay.
and
So
put
that's
it-
taken care of?
Yes,
Okay.
it's in the works. I did go out and speak to Mrs. Botts. and
That's-
explain to her that.
That's the one at 136.
And she's okay with
Can
it?
we, so I don't,
Yeah.
hey, there's too much talking, sorry. I just wanna try to stick to the motion, and then if we get a second, then we can ask a question if it relates to the particular motion.
Karen has a
Karen
question
has a
on the
question,
motion.
go ahead.
I was just concerned in the motion, I wanted to make sure that there were two easements that need to be requested, I wanted to make sure that both are included in the motion.
The motion identifies the easement required from property owner McNeil at 752 Jerusalem. I did not note any other.
It's on the other
It's on the
page.
bottom of the first.
The guy-
page.
No, I'm saying I didn't note
Oh.
any other.
Yeah, well, I had the same problem.
It's just confusing.
No, that's fine. I'm sorry, Tracy, would you read the motion?
A motion to grant request to install subpoles at 122 and 137 pending easement from property owner and the entire replacement of pole 129. That's what you said so far.
122 and 137.
Yes, that's what I have. I'm sorry, 122 and 137 pending easement from property owner on 137.
Yes,
The
okay,
entire
and
replacement of 129.
forgive me, the Guyer easement would be one,
122, right?
122.
122, we need an easement.
and 122, okay, so I'd like to revise the motion. Move that the board grant request for stub poles at 122 pending acquisition of an easement from the property owner, 666?
662.
At 662 Jerusalem Road. The stub pole at 137 pending easement from property owner at 752 Jerusalem Road.
Correct.
And then the replacement in entirety of pole 129.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion and the plan? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 5-0.
And may I also express my thanks to the utility for working with the
Yes.
property owner to find a successful resolution. We really appreciate that.
And also, I'd like to express a thanks, and sorry that we had 4 weeks of this, but we're really learning a lot about it.
Wasn't everyone learning?
Like I said, it's one of those things, you see
More than
bubbles
you
in your
needed to,
sleep,
right?
but.
It's really neat to know.
Exactly, but I think we've made some significant progress in the first
Yes.
meeting, and we all understand things, and I think we've, you've made accommodations, so appreciate it. Kevin, did you have a question, or did you get your question
No,
was
it was just a
answered?
leaning pole issue.
Okay, right.
Take care of that.
And that's something, and again, I wanna thank National Grid for all the work, and Joe in particular for the work on Dome Street, all that work that got done at Beechwood
Yes.
Cemetery.
Was that your doing? Thank you.
Neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, well, I will tell you,
It's okay to confirm it, thank you.
in our business, we tend to hear a lot of the complaints, but I have had a lot of people say, I'm so glad they did that, thank you, for doing that, they were so responsive, et cetera, so, thank you.
No, it's a great partnership, you have a good gentleman back here, it's,
He's all right.
that's all right, he's all right back there, Chief Sylvia, working with the town, so thank you, Madam Chair, for going through all the numbers.
My pleasure.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks,
Thank you,
Thank you.
gentlemen.
I want to get the town seal back on the agenda. Look at these two lines. I know it's all about layout.
All right, it all worked out.
Okay, so, next on the agenda is, approval for the John Smith Day. Was anybody gonna be here from?
I don't
I know
think so, no.
I think they're meeting actually
Yeah,
right
they
now.
are meeting
Yep.
tonight, and I happen to have, there's an application. I happen to have the poster.
Oh, good.
I'll put it up so people can see it.
That's nice.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, very nice.
one of our members was able to get it very reasonable. You should use it for other things.
Do you mind if I just read
You can do it,
a little
Heidi.
bit? So I am gonna ask, somebody from the, Historical Commission to come in next week, but
Mhm.
the, recognition of Captain John Smith Day, or the landing of Captain John Smith in Cohasset, which is entitled Captain John Smith Day, is gonna be on Saturday, September 13th, and there are programs, beginning at the Cohasset Historical Society, the night before with a reception, and then 10 o'clock on the morning of Saturday the 13th. There's keynote speakers in the Town Hall Auditorium at 1, Native American presentation at John Sidney Square, which don't know where that is.
It's the triangle down opposite the motel.
At Elm Street.
Oh, okay, all right, I was thinking it's up here, I didn't know that. Wampanoag Nation singers and dancers and a bread-making demonstration. And then there's gonna be a reenactment of Captain John Smith arriving by boat at Lawrence Wharf. Plaque dedication at 3:45, and there'll be also a Coast Guard vessel docked at Lawrence Wharf. So it's gonna be a wonderful day, and I wanna make sure everybody in the community knows about it and plans to attend, and hopefully somebody can come and talk to us and give us a little more of the
Yeah.
real.
I have a little more information.
Wonderful story.
At the reception on Friday night, we're having the 2 speakers that we're having at 3:30, who are talking
Will be the night before.
for at the Historical Society.
That's great, okay.
The Historical Society?
I'm
Yes.
sorry,
That's
I always.
Historical
Sorry.
Just keep it, making sure we're
By the
still
way,
awake.
Martha, I was on Monhegan Island last week.
Were you?
Yeah, and there's a plaque right beside the schoolhouse
Yeah.
commemorating John Smith's
Visit up
300th
here.
anniversary of his
Yeah.
landing
Mhm.
in 1914,
Yeah.
or 1914. Because apparently he set out from Monhegan Island and came down the coast.
That's right.
Shortly
And
afterwards.
there was a ceremony, like in 1914 here, too.
Yeah.
So we're all coordinated.
Yeah.
And I read the book. It's very funny that they
Just did a-
produced a commemorative book, and
Yeah.
there was,
Funny.
Is it a comedy? Like a musical?
well, it's just interesting how
Yeah,
things were
it's
stated
stated.
back 100 years ago.
Yeah,
They just had
Especially about
400th
women.
on Monhegan as well.
yeah.
Yes, they had a little parade, well, little, it was a big parade from Monhegan.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it went from, I think, the brewery to the fish beach.
Yeah.
Well, they're probably about the same length as we have in Cohasset.
No, it's shorter.
Shorter?
But you can stay longer at the brewery if you like.
Yeah.
Is there a road closing permit?
Yes.
Do we
Yes.
have that?
No,
It should be there.
I don't know.
It,
No, it's,
No, we have
it's
some.
noted that it,
Hang on.
It's noted there.
There it is, sorry.
We have
it's noted, but there's no permit for that.
I don't have that. I guess that was in the packet. but
No,
isn't
I
that-
held together.
I didn't get it. Yeah.
Close
Yeah,
Cove
Joyce.
Road during part of the event from 12:45 to 3:30. And there'll be signs along Border Street, no parking, event only. And there is a food permit, which we
I have
don't
a food
approve,
permit.
but we've got copies of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Is that right in here?
So,
No.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the Cohasset Historical Commission commemoration of the 400th anniversary of Captain John Smith's Landing.
Mhm.
Is there a
So
motion?
moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
Any comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes 5-0. Okay, next up is event approval discussion. I can't remember which event we were approving last week, or 2 weeks ago, and we talked about how to approach applications going forward, knowing that we definitely want to, at the very least, revisit the event application for the town, which was in our packet, filled out by the Historical Commission, so. I know that Chris and Jen have had discussions internally about the next, some things that we might want to improve upon within this event application. These things, when the committee met, for example, we never envisioned rides on the common, that request, and we've dealt with that now too. So, I guess I would like to just ask Chris sort of what you see in terms of a time frame, and then I'd like the board to discuss sort of how do we, what do we do while this time frame kind of works itself out.
The updated policies, clock begins. The first one you'll be getting will be updated, will be the liquor license regulations. That'll be next. And I'm hoping to have that to you this week. So you look at it, and you'll either have it on the calendar of the 10th or on the following calendar, depending on where you are. After that, we'll set up the common use policy, which is a kind of an addendum to what's already with events. That's specifically dealing with use of the common.
Go ahead.
So that's a plan.
Yep.
We've done a little investigation about other communities, and I have to tell you, my colleagues on the session are all basically in the same boat that we are. The question is, how many is too many, and no one's quite come to that yet. It's kind of done on a case-by-case basis. I'm not saying that no one is doing this, but nothing that's been given to me yet has indicated that anyone has a kind of a set of rules, or again, how many is too many. It's kind of done on mostly at this point, a case-by-case basis. We're a little further up the coast, I think, and we're also comparing.
Is that a metaphor?
Well, I mean, it's easier to do a short run from Boston or something, and plus we're also compact, so things affect us a little differently. Some of the other communities to our south are much bigger, so race doesn't affect them the same way. They can route in different ways, and they have more open land. More of their coastal area is beach as opposed to housing. So if they close a route, it's not affecting people's lives in the same way. So we're in a little different circumstance that way. So, so I'm still trying to see what other people are doing on that front. So that would be that issue. That would be the next policy to tee up, and then you'd look at that for later September or early October adoption. Is that?
Do you think that's really quickly?
Yeah, well, no.
Do you think
Jen's
that's
already drafted
queued up
something
pretty
we've looked
well?
at,
Okay.
and she was tweaking a few things, but I didn't want to give them all at once. I want to do one.
Have we had any pushback, and I don't want to get into the meat of this because that's not why we're here, but have we had any pushback on the event application fee?
I don't think so.
Mm-mm. No.
Okay.
I'm not going to, Tracy's saying no, so I'm
No.
guessing no. So.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's very reasonable. It takes office staff time.
No, absolutely. I was under the impression not everybody was paying for it,
Well, I think the board waived some.
we've waived some of them. Okay. All right. So just in terms of if we were to get an application next week, for example, I thought that the window was going to be more. We were talking spring, having an event policy.
No, I think
so, and
that's
I
something
didn't
as
want
well.
to set a
Yeah,
moratorium or anything, knowing that there are going to be probably things that typically happen. We discussed some of them last week.
Are we talking about
Or
an
2 weeks
event
ago.
policy or a public lands use policy? Because I understand that is a good chunk of what you're discussing.
What the first piece that's being teed up is common use, because that came out of the earlier event that happened on the common, or it was planned for the common that caused some controversy. Other communities, and we looked at some other communities that have a little more. The common is a unique piece of land, so and a number of other communities have a little different standards for its use, and again, that's really our primary use. I mean, other communities also have parks and things. We don't really have those here, so this is really, it's both a unique piece of land and the place where people will have an event that's not a race. Right? Even if they do have a race, they often start or end here, or both. So that's what's kind of come up to you next. Events per se, at this point I haven't gotten anything definitive that anyone else is doing, so that may just be a conversation for you to have in a more global sense and say, okay, well, and I don't know that I'm going to have much guidance from anyone else. It may just be, well, what do we feel is the right thing to do?
One of the key things that the committee did a few years ago when we designed the special event application was we defined what a special event would be. And it basically was something that would have an impact on roads, right-of-ways or anything, parking lots, that kind of thing, or some kind of public safety implication. And that's how we defined what a special event is. And it's pretty explicit, but again, subject to conversation.
You might ask Lexington and Concord, because they have commons up there that are used for events, and which would be
Some real
somewhat
big ones.
similar. They're big, larger, but
Some of
somewhat.
them are way out of hand.
It's something similar,
Gunfire and
use of
such.
commons. And I can think of those, there are probably others, but those come to mind.
So
immediately.
what
If
happened
Karen
is there
would
was,
like
oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
No, there was a gap. So basically, what was discovered earlier this year was that there was a gap. There was an area that really wasn't defined well.
Mhm.
So the goal of the common use policy was to help define that, to make it clear what's okay and what's not, so we don't have.
Is this for you, go ahead, Tim.
Use of the common, this is for use of the
Well,
common.
I was just gonna say sort of, I'm not sure whether this is what Steve was trying to get at or not, but, some of my concerns, I think that the board needs to address are, how many events within a period of time, how they impact, you know, our roads, our residents who are primary responsibility, although we wanna help all the charities that we can, that is really our primary responsibility. The size of events, parking, these are some of the complaints that people have said. They wanna go down to the village to shop or go to the library or the post office, and there's an event going on, there's no parking anyplace, they can't get anyplace, people are all over the roads. So I think that those, from my perspective, our concern is how these events are affecting our residents, the people that we represent. And then over and above that, how can we then help facilitate raising funds for worthwhile causes? But that's.
Well, that's a second question, and that's a much broader one. So I'm gonna be able to give you guidance on common use, because it's a fairly definable subject. The other one's kind of a community by community kind of a thing. It really is.
And
Again,
that's my event.
there is one item though that may be helpful to the town at large, and actually ourselves and the staff.
Mhm.
There, given that that we are trying to accomplish with the website a more general source of information, maybe it's worthwhile posting an events calendar on the website, such that it can be referred to. You could even add to it your own editorial commentary that this is expected to impact traffic, during this time period, or it will have, we suspect it'll have an impact on parking in this particular area. At the very least, better communication might reduce some level of frustration.
And forgive me, because I think I've been all over the website, but are we able to go and look at a whole month? Like, can we go on there now and look at December? Because I just look at the scroll here or go to the
No.
page
You
to
could-
find the agenda.
You could look, and if there's an event, it'll just say event, and you click and see what it is.
Yes.
Okay.
But we
Yeah,
can
I'm-
highlight.
I'm thinking permitted events.
Especially
Yes.
ones that are gonna
Right.
have
I
big
think it gets
impact.
confusing if you have too many calendars though for people. I think if we have one calendar where everything is on it.
Yep.
I think your point, Steve, and again, you're right. I
No,
hear
no,
what
no,
you're
I
saying,
think
but I
Steve
think
is absolutely
if there's
correct.
something coming up, it will be important to highlight, and we have the ability to do that.
How you
Next
do it is-
weekend or
yeah.
2 weekends, this is coming up, be prepared, road closures, so.
Right, and it just, look, I mean, as we go through this, we end up seeing events, event applications, generally well in advance of the item for consideration. But the town at large doesn't see it that way, and, unless they're following along on a Tuesday night when we meet, or it happens to be mentioned in a local paper, in many cases, they don't really recognize, the broad population doesn't likely recognize an event taking place until it's upon them. And, so they may or may not see the impact, but if we have some outbound communication, some attempt at letting people know that the town is permitting something to take place, and with
So-
that permitting, here are the expected impacts for you over what period of time. And like I
So-
said, at the very least, we should be relieving some frustration.
So once we accept once we permit it,
Once it's permitted.
so, if we did the road race in 2 weeks, or for example, somebody came in, it says 60 or 90 days for some of the bigger events.
Right.
and then just put it up almost as a press release that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then it'll
Well,
fall,
I'm not-
it'll
I-
end up on the bigger, larger calendar.
I think that's all part of the policy
Yep.
that has to be
Yep.
defined, but the point out of it is that, you know, if it's a large event, if it's an event, period, if it's an event that requires a permit, there should be some thought process in it, such that it's before us
We,
more than, say, 60 days prior to its execution. So,
we have a number of events that occur every year,
yeah, you mean
And-
recurring,
recurring events.
right.
So that it wouldn't be impossible to set a date and say, applications for recurring events should be in by such and such a date. That way, that would give us a better feel for what's coming up, how it impacts globally.
Yeah, if it's a recurring event, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't see the application, I don't know, was 90 days reasonable? I mean, if it's a
Yeah.
recurring event.
I mean, certainly with things like the road race and the triathlon, I mean,
They-
they need to
they
get people
Right.
registered.
MS and all that, they set those dates way in advance,
Right.
year in advance. They
Right.
know when they're going to have these events, the
Right.
report bike, we said a bike race, the other things, they know, Rotary, they know when these events, because they have to have for entries.
Well, I think some of the conversations you're gonna wanna have is not just how many to have, but where they go.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, some communities do direct routes to more, you know, to a 3A or something as opposed to a more, Jerusalem Road may be very scenic, but at the other hand, it's also only, it's pretty narrow.
At some point, I
Yeah,
see.
so you do have the ability to say, well, we're only gonna allow an impact on this road once a month or 2 times a month.
So-
Well,
whatever.
but along those lines, I mean, I think it's worthwhile to have this body consider those things, but I frankly think that the direction for it should remain with you and the public safety chiefs, because you know what you're looking for, right? Likewise, and while we're on that topic, what about the unsanctioned events? What management control do we have over the motorcycle rides that will tie up Jerusalem Road for 7-8 minutes at a time?
That's an excellent question, and I'm not sure that we have that much.
Right.
I mean, if it's unsanctioned, we don't know about it, and roads are public roads after all, and if people are gonna be riding a motorized vehicle down them, I don't know. I honestly don't know. This is a problem that that's just, people may just get together in a group and decide to go out one day too.
In this case, I'm talking about things that are
The
organized.
the organized rides.
Yes.
Yeah, I told, Steve is saying, because I had some comments actually from the police ad hoc committee that, the motorcycle showed up and a policeman blocked the road down at the end of Forest Avenue. And the police department had no aware of this.
It's
I
not-
mean, they
it's not
just
our
suddenly do it.
policeman.
No.
It's not our group.
No,
And
I
they
heard
were
about
upset.
that, yeah.
Last year at Black Rock Beach, that little road,
Mhm. The same thing.
they were filming a movie. All of a sudden, this movie trailer set up and blocked off that
Oh
whole
my goodness.
area, and no one knew about it in
Yeah.
town. It was just crazy. So, you know, there's
Could
only
we-
so much we can do.
Could we ask what our rights are? Could we get a legal
Mhm.
opinion on that?
Yeah, I think that's a good
Do
idea.
do we have any?
When these people show up.
Probably not with motorcycles.
Well, I
and
mean,
just
I'll
driving
ask.
down a
I mean,
public road.
I mean,
But
the worst anybody ever can say is no.
I disagree that we don't have any, because at the very face of it, when you come to, let's say, you're at the northern end of Jerusalem Road,
Mm,
and you come to the Forest Hill intersection,
mm,
you've got to stop,
absolutely.
okay? And I believe under state law, the immediate vehicle behind you can actually roll through the stop so long as they observe safety. Now,
Sure.
I'll nod to the police chief, but I believe that that's the case. Having said that, that just simply means that the next vehicle in
Has
line
to
has to
stop.
full stop,
Mm.
all right?
So it's
So there
every
is no legitimate reason whereby
Stop, presumably a car behind us.
any non-authorized officer can withhold free flow of traffic in order to allow a stream of free riders.
I think when something like that happens, I believe there's an effort made by our department to reach out and say, hey, what are you doing?
I,
We've had this
can I
several
ask
years
you,
in a row.
may I just ask you to have that powwow with the chief?
Absolutely.
So,
Um,
can I suggest that we, a couple of things. One is that we put this on an agenda when Chris has whatever backup information that we may require for him, for the office to look into. I would also like to recommend, and, you know, maybe it's the last week in September, maybe it's the following meeting, but I would like to ask the board to really look through this. If you still have it, it's the commission for the John Smith thing, but it has the questions, because the committee did look at this, and I didn't remember it either, but any large event or new event, needs to file their application with the town at least 120 days prior to the event. I mean, we put these in place, so now the question is, you know, how are we effectively communicating that information, or are we paying any attention to it? No. So let's each of us take some time and look through this, see what exists, see what we feel is important to this, see what's missing, and we'll have a substantive conversation.
We're reviewing this policy, this is a policy for comment tonight on this
No,
here,
no,
So-
I just wanted to address it because we were talking last week about whether we should be
but is
issuing a
Chris gonna
moratorium.
be doing some work on this? for us to
I'm not
look at?
planning on touching,
Okay, I wanna surface a concern I have, if
Okay.
I may.
Sure.
All right.
And it's not a huge deal, but when I looked at the application and it talks about, you know, we're talking about using a lot of common property, land, you know, streets, but more particularly I'm thinking of the town commons and parks and so forth. And we've had a lot of discussions here about how historical our town commons is and meaningful it is and the reasons so forth here. And I was struck by the fact that when we talked about, in this first page here, that the activities that do not require or permit town permission are weddings, funeral ceremonies, bake sales, Christmas tree and pumpkin sales, car washes and so forth. So what I want to see in the final policy, what I would like to see is make sure that when we make a statement regarding, especially as it touches upon the town commons, that we make a statement that recognizes its historical value, and it makes a civic statement that I think is wholesome for the community. And it may help alleviate our problems with people coming and saying, can we use the town commons for a circus or something? So I would like to see a statement, and I've got a few words here for you to consider, that would, you know, highlight the legitimate constitutional rights that, you know, people have to go on the commons and speak and assemble anyways. But I think that as a Board of Selectmen, to make and yourself, when we initiate a policy like this, we should use an opportunity like this to make a proactive, positive statement that gives civic leadership and encourages democracy, as corny as that sounds, and so forth. And it's just something that we uniquely can do. So when it came to this
this
second
is-
paragraph here, I just give my suggestion, and we're not
And
gonna...
this is relating to the common or to,
Well, I'll read it, and
All right,
you'll see it's
okay.
quite obviously what it says. Just, I want to add, in this last sentence, Madam Chair, that says, activities that do not require a permit, including weddings, funeral receptions, let's see, another one. Elections, private yard sales, bake sales, Christmas trees, pumpkin sales, car washes, and activities such as retail sales promotions, such as local business sidewalk sales, and I want to say, and the right to gather on the town commons and public parks in order to exercise constitutionally protected First Amendment rights of assembly and free speech. I think it's just a good thing for our town when we act in this public sphere relative to that historic site and relative to issues that affect the Constitution, that this is an appropriate thing for the selectmen to be assertive on, and we do that on behalf of, you know, the
What do you,
people.
give me an example of a group using the common.
So someone might want to, sort of like the traditional, you know, Boston Commons, people can go down and put a soapbox up and say anything that they want, or type thing, that sort of a liberty. So that if someone wanted to go down and get on a soapbox and talk about, you know, anything they want, or that's related to the public, you know, voting or civil rights or anything that they want to say that they're protected to say in public, you know, under our Constitution, that's what I'm saying. If a group wants to get together and make a presentation on feeding, people in foreign countries or whatever it is. They should be able to say anything that you can say under the Constitution. So I'm not saying here that we would expand any rights. That wouldn't be our right at all to do anyways. All I'm saying is that we reaffirm and recognize the constitutionally protected rights, which is what a commons is really, all about. And I think it gives it the reverence and respect. It's just a great thing for our town to do.
Yeah, I just wanna kind of make sure we're clear that I know exactly where Kevin's coming from, and that's more in terms of the use of public space. And when we actually did the special event application, we were gonna branch out into the use of the common, which is, I think, a second thing, which is
Which is where
Kevin's going.
Which is what we're working.
Exactly.
So we will see that so that we can make a
And we
proclamation
had,
as a board and so.
we had an attorney on the board, Lisa Hewitt was on, and she kept saying, you can't say no one can use the common. This particular special event, and again, we can discuss this at another meeting, but this event application is, in my mind, different from the use of the town common or the town soccer fields or whatever.
Yeah.
This is really for events that are gonna shut down a road or cause, or do some kind of,
They engage a variety of services from the town itself.
right, or that
Yeah.
pose a public safety thing.
Well-
And that, so we should look at this very carefully in terms of what we're defining as a special event that would need an application, as opposed to what might happen on the common or
Right.
Milliken Field. And that's another kind of thing that might be interesting to, like, what happens if somebody wants to do what if they wanna do the, First Parish Nursery School Fair at Milliken? What's the channel for them to do that?
Well, that's managed by the rec department, so.
Right, which is kinda interesting,
But even so, I do believe that regardless of who oversees it, the process should be identical.
Yes,
Well,
maybe.
when the difference, again, I was not here for your conversations about this,
Right.
but as I get this, basically a public event is impacting either the common or the roads, streets, sidewalks of the community, or any other
Right.
public space. Playing fields are typically designed for some kind of athletic purpose, and they're primarily used for those purposes. Not you can't have other things on them.
But imagine that drawing so much traffic to Milliken Field that it looks like a Saturday morning in the fall. In other words, imagine a Saturday morning in the fall, okay? That's, if it's an event that's going to draw more than normal, then you're going to need public safety awareness of that very same thing.
And
Okay?
I believe that goes on now.
My point is that it doesn't matter to me if rec administers it. It doesn't matter to me if rec is developing that program to help their revolving fund. That is ideally the impact that you need, and we would expect you to have, so that you know what needs to be deployed within fire, or in this case, ambulance services, police, for traffic control, public safety, whatever it might be, DPW for trash pickup, or any other services required, right? It doesn't matter to me, and I think it wouldn't matter to many folks whether it was at Milliken or it was down at Wheelwright
Or the library parking lot.
or the library parking lot, or whatever. The checklist itself, this approach makes sense, okay? Because really what it does, are we gonna remember what it all means, other than they did go through the steps and the processes?
And that was the whole intent.
What we're gonna know is that you know what's needed.
I'm pretty confident that Ted is doing all these things now. I'll have to pull an application form, because in all honesty, I've never looked at.
And please believe me, I'm not picking on one department or
No,
another.
I understand.
But if it comes, it doesn't matter to us it doesn't matter to me
Right.
what department it comes under. What matters to me is that you're fully aware of something that's going on, and just as importantly, the citizens of the town eventually become aware of something that's going to take place as it impacts them.
Yeah, I think the better we get at this, the more that we can,
All of these.
put stuff up on the website, and again, I think some of this, and we could share more things, it'd be more transparent. You're right. So there could be a traffic jam they'll
What
look at
might-
just as easy as that.
What might help to clarify it is if it isn't something under the school jurisdiction or something that recreation isn't handling, then if it's an event on public property, then it should come to the Board of Selectmen.
Well, it should, but that's the whole point of this.
And then
right?
it's,
Right.
but then it's defining
But
what
then
what you
it's-
mean by events, so that you're not
Right.
making somebody that wants to do an
But it's-
impromptu, and I hate to say it,
Well,
but
and,
I don't
yeah.
wanna use that person's name, the LL
Right,
person that
right,
shows up and
yeah.
just plops themselves on public property
Right.
and, but, you know, we need to be sensitive to that. I wanna rein this conversation
Well,
and
I just want to be
actually-
clear then,
Well,
because when we started, like, I'm sorry, you wanna-
Well, I just want to make it clear then that I think this policy needs to be re-looked at, and I would like to see it revisited in terms of how the Commons is treated, particularly in terms of the First Amendment. And we don't need to do it tonight, but
We're
whenever
doing
we
it.
do all this, can this come back to
Well,
us?
well, Kevin, exactly, a common use policy is in production now.
Right.
And that will answer, I think, the questions you've raised.
Well, that'll come to us for
Yeah, exactly.
approval, because I want to
Yes.
have, we would
Yes.
want to have
Yes.
input on that. 'cause that's
Absolutely,
something-
absolutely.
Yes.
And
And if
this
you
should
could share that
be
with,
redone too.
just shoot me that email, that would be great. If you could email
This
it
is
to
a-
me.
right.
I'll shoot
Email-
you my
yeah,
suggested comment,
please.
yeah.
These are
Because-
policies,
Right.
these are within our
Right, yeah.
purview, we will
Right.
have a conversation. Can I move us along?
But this is, by the way, this,
Can I make a-
what you've raised here is different than I was under the impression of going into the meeting, so that's good. So you want me to revisit you want us, staff to take a look at this.
I'd like to relook at this too.
If that's basically what you're asking, we're happy to
I
do
would.
that.
So
I think when we see if I may, Madam Chair, that if when we see the common use policy, if we could see this also and just sort of do it as a package.
That may take a
Yeah,
little longer.
that's
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, so if that was.
Steve?
I have one practical
Quick.
suggestion.
Yep.
Page 3, second paragraph, annual events must file their completed event application at least 60 days prior to the event. Here, my suggestion is this. They have to pull an application according to this 120 days prior to the event. If they pull that application, can we simply have notification that the application's been pulled? In other words, can you slide it right into our packet?
Yeah.
Okay? It doesn't need anything more than that. But it gives us a look over the horizon at something that we expect to see coming back in a completed form.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
basically, the way this
We
works
haven't
is
had any
that
of that since I've been on the board.
No, that's the
That's the
point.
point.
That's the point.
Yeah.
you want to know the minute something's filed, even if it's not complete.
Yeah.
Well, no, if someone comes in, if
Yeah.
Citizens Group B comes in and says, we'd like to gather at Wheelwright Park on such and such a date, either Tracy or Jen are gonna know about that, right? And they'll have handed out the application. That's all I'm looking for, is that there's been an application pulled for,
I'm
Someone
gonna
could
move,
pull
I'm
this
sorry,
by
I'm
the
gonna
day.
move us along. I totally,
Someone could pull us off the web, by the way, and we would never know.
Well, I think we're, because
No,
I have
but
a
once
comment or
it-
two, but we're not gonna
yeah,
make
this,
those now.
we're,
right?
I didn't
Fair enough.
intend for us to get into the weeds on this or the other policy. I wanted to make sure that we were okay with that, the fact that both of these policies are in motion. We will be revisiting them. We will have discussions. I say, take these home, make
Mm-hmm.
marks, and the next conversation on the agenda will be substantive. And I didn't wanna I
we
personally
can
didn't
have-
wanna,
yeah.
put a message out that we're closed for business in terms of approving things. But it looks like this is on the fast track.
So we'll have this in the next
So
few
it's
meetings?
not like spring before we have a,
Liquor licenses, the regulations for liquor licensing is first.
and that's way more important.
This is, and the common use is, if you want to do common use and this together, it'll take a little longer, because common use is it's close to ready, but I haven't really, we haven't.
Take your time and do it right.
Could we just get an electronic copy of it's on the web, right?
The
It's
event
on the web, we'll get it
Okay.
ourselves.
All right, I wanna move along. If the board is okay moving to financial update, because I know Mary's here, and
Okay.
are you here just because you have nothing else? Mary
Yeah,
Gallagher.
I just got so excited.
You wanted to be here for the financial discussion, so if it's okay with the board, let's jump to that, financial update, and then we'll backtrack to some of the other discussions.
We're actually slightly ahead of time then, technically.
Well, not really.
Well,
Well, no,
skip the whole
for the
group.
financial update.
Right, true.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
8:19.
As I think everyone now has a copy of the email from the state.
Email from the state.
And that free cash
The free cash
certification.
certification email, I think
Oh, yeah,
Tracy
I got
handed that out.
yeah, okay. I didn't realize
This was
this
also
from-
sent to us electronically.
It was, yes,
I
it was.
Right,
I didn't
right.
realize this was from the state.
Right.
Right, and it pretty much when I went over it earlier, when I was thinking retained earnings and free cash would be, it's pretty much the same except for the general fund. where they actually gave us credit for, our receivables we had on the books for the police and fire detail. So they expected that money would come in, and, they made an adjustment. We had some, negative property tax balances, so they didn't allow those, so. So we actually made out better.
Meaning we haven't
Negative.
collected some of our property taxes.
Well, we over-collected. I think they need to adjust it and put it against the next year's.
Okay. Was
Yeah,
that unusual?
They're very
for-
small amounts.
Was that
One's
unusual
$20,
for the,
one's $1. Yeah.
for the
I-
outstanding on the police detail?
Well, it's the first time they've been put on the balance sheet for a while, 'cause the auditors had, suggested that they should be put on our ledger, so. It's now on there. And, water and sewer came in just as I had calculated.
So Mary and I have been meeting, we met today, we met last week, we're going over, and I went by, I want to thank her for all the work she did. She's closed out the books ahead of time, cleanly, the auditors have been happy, we're signed off on, there are some other towns that don't even have a final balance yet, so.
This is September 2nd.
Right, so.
Yeah, I know, it's
Yeah.
pretty.
It's a long way.
Mary did a
Oh,
great
the-
job.
Well, the
so.
treasurer collector's office too
Right.
was great,
And
because
Paul's
they're,
office
all of the above. Yeah.
the person we hired in there has just helped tremendously, so we were able to get cash reconciled and receivables.
So that's the good
Major
news.
point.
I want to, so we've been meeting and talking about what to do. So we're going to make recommendations, obviously going into this special town meeting, but before then, to talk about the free cash and where we might recommend, not tonight, because I want you to absorb this a little bit more, and we still have to talk. And say, this is where we recommend we go and how we recommend. For example, one of the big issues that we've all been talking about is OPEB, clearly, right? So some of this money, I think it's $185,000, give or take.
Right, for health
Is
insurance.
directly tied to savings in health insurance from last year. I believe that the position was to put that,
Pardon me.
to recommend town meeting put that right into OPEB, which I strongly recommend would be done, so. So that comes right at the top, for starters. And we'll also make a recommendation to keep some in free cash, just because we should. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. And then some other things that we may have to address. The sewers are in good shape, and I know that we need to talk, Steve, we want to talk a little bit separately offline about that. But they're okay. And water had a very small but real negative retained earnings, I guess, of $31,000.
Yeah.
We've been talking about that too, not just for this year, but for next year and looking forward. So the Water Commission has a meeting on Thursday. We're going to go to that meeting and meet with the commissioners and recommend some things that be done. And so we can come back to you and say, here's the plan for this year, next year. So get under control.
That meeting with the Water Commission's meeting this Thursday?
This Thursday. I think it's 10, right?
Yeah, 10 o'clock.
Yeah. So we're going to talk with them a little bit and see where it goes. I mean, it's all, we've been doing a lot of numbers, so.
The water,
Can I just,
the water enterprise ran an operating deficit, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
we
at the
included
same
that
time,
in
the
everything.
stabilization fund still has,
Right, the capital stabilization still has about 200,000, I think, somewhere around there.
right, so
1.7.
they've taken past designated,
Right, surplus
retained
funds,
earnings and
yes.
put them into
Yes.
stabilization.
If they had actually not put that into the capital stabilization, they wouldn't have had a retained earnings deficit, it would have just
Right.
fallen.
That would have, it would have flowed from
Yeah.
retained
Yeah.
earnings.
I hate to ask this question, but.
Go ahead.
What are the mechanics can you take their retained earnings surplus and
Well, that's what we're gonna look at, we
Roll
have
it
to take
back,
a
that
look
would
on
be
how
town
to word
meeting.
an article if we wanna pull it out of capital, because right now it's in a capital, which is supposed to be used for capital
Right.
purposes, so now you have to
Right.
see how you would vote
and
to
whether
take
there's
that out.
another way to do that?
Yeah.
See, that's, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't happen, then the town has to.
The town would have to raise the
Raise the
deficit,
money.
the
Raise the
31,000.
deficit.
Well, in this case, that would be a use of free cash.
Right,
Yes.
Right.
They
Right.
have any?
or you just let it fall through the recap and it just.
There are also.
Do they have any liens that they?
Yeah, the water's all, it's got no,
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
nothing coming in on that.
Just for the sort of the benefit of, briefly, the people at home and just in general, we're looking at a figure here of $922,000 of free cash. Could you explain to the layman, so to speak, what that means? In other words, have we gone through the whole year, we've had all our revenues, all our expenditures, Is this money that's sitting here we have to figure out what to do with?
We don't have to figure out
Oh, could
how
you
to do
explain, just so
anything
people-
with it. You can just leave it there, basically, it's just available.
But where did it come from? It came from,
It came from, your revenues, you collected more than you budgeted, you turned back, you spent less than you budgeted, which gives you a surplus, and then if you have prior year surpluses, it carries forward.
oh, so
good-
this
good-
is in addition to prior, so this wasn't all generated this year?
I think most of it was generated this year,
This year.
yeah, because I think we appropriated most of our free cash flow.
So
Yes, we
this,
have.
for the layperson, so to speak, so then because we went through the year, our books are balanced, we're all, we now have 922,000 left over, it's in cash, and this isn't this sort of why the purpose is for the special town meeting sometimes, is to look at this, or?
Well,
To
no,
give
the
some
special
of
town meeting, a lot of times is to do with, when you go to set the recap, if you have issues like this retained earnings deficit, if you wanna deal with it rather than letting it fall through the recap where it goes through your levy, you can actually appropriate money to take care of it. You can make budget adjustments if you know some of your budgets are off that you didn't know about.
But if we wanted to, the town could look at 922,000, just put it in the bank and just move on, right?
Right,
Is that
yes,
correct? And then
exactly.
and nobody would question you?
Right.
One of the potential uses
Well,
is to
somebody
put
would
it into a
question.
stabilization
Yeah, a
fund
lot
or
of people would
reserves.
question.
Right.
But, you know, one of the things that you were asking about, a good example is there's some $190,000 that was saved in, with respect to health insurance this year. So that's an item that came in at a lower budgeted level than we had carried and asked the town to approve. So that money rolled back to us. Along with that, local fees came in at a higher level than was originally budgeted.
And to put this in perspective, when you take away the health, which is a little different, which is a little unique, the savings on that, that's not necessarily a recurring item.
Probably one time.
Right. It's less than 2% of the overall budget, so,
Right.
you know, the margin it's not like we generated this 10 or 15% return, it was less than 2%. And that's, I mean, it doesn't sound, I mean, it sounds like a lot of money, but it's not really, because, remember, governments don't have the ability to go back and, you know, if we have, you don't get a chance during the year to correct for
Right.
negatives, right? So you always want to end the year as in the black. You don't want to be silly, okay? You don't want to have, you know, but to keep it in perspective, it's only 2% of a little
our
less than
budget.
2%.
But I would point out that 2% is 50% more than Walmart operates on. So, just
But-
as an
They have
aside.
bigger gross than we do.
But
Yeah.
I would also like to point out that this is, a third consecutive year where we've had a major, balance, and that's a good thing.
Yes, it is.
Except that people are not paying attention to how we're spending our money or where the surplus is coming from. And so the taxpayers who are sitting out there are thinking, why again do we have nearly $1 million surplus? Am I being overtaxed?
It's
And I
just-
think that
That's a
that's a
fair-
very important question that needs to be addressed. You know, it's, in my personal opinion is that it's not that the town doesn't need the money, but we need to account for where it needs to be spent better.
Yes.
That's right.
One-
But we also had a sheet before this was calculated where money was coming in from the different
Of the budget to
categories.
actual for
The actual budgets.
Mhm.
And you could see where we're getting more money in like fees we
Right. Mhm.
and different other things. So that picture has to go along with what we got here.
Karen
And I think it's important.
and Martha both, I'd like to bring your attention back to this because it's really not 922. Remember,
I know
the
that.
special town meeting,
Yeah, I
there was an
know.
additional 600,000 that was tucked
Yeah,
away.
I know.
So it's 1.5 million.
Well, but
Okay?
you're adding
I
2
know
years
that,
together,
1.5
but it was.
million.
No.
1.5
We
million, I
advance
know that.
funded ourselves at
Yeah.
special
And
town
we
meeting
knew,
of
'cause
$600,000.
we
I
were
knew
getting
it was- I
receipts
knew
were
it
in.
was-
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
knew
the
it was
special town
1.5.
meeting.
It was,
I knew
it was
that.
it was a discussion, a heated
State
discussion
receipts came
amongst the
in.
board
Yeah.
at
And
that
we
point.
plug
Yeah.
that into the budget.
Yeah.
So there's a,
Right, we were gonna have an excess levy capacity, right,
Yes.
so we
So-
lowered local receipts.
So the point is, we have to make the we have to figure out if we're budgeting properly or we're not, and be able to answer questions.
Diane, why don't you have Peter say something?
Peter, say something.
You can say something in regards to this. as a
Thanks, Martha. It's my meeting.
I just wanna follow up.
Would you like his input?
Well, it just, but the point out of that is your point is well made, at the $922,000 figure is, it is actually a material amount. I know personally, if I had a choice between having 1 or 2% greater amount of disposable income, I'd take it. But the amount itself, for point of clarification, is larger than this. It's about $1.5 million. So the good news is we have had, after some fairly dark periods, an extended period now of financial success. I think, well, we've heard from each member of the board, there is some concern as to whether or not our budgeting strategies and our budgeting strategies are effective. Are we tying up our own citizens' money and not using it effectively? I would argue that just looking at OPEB alone says no.
Right.
Okay? But having said that, we've got to be able to justify a continuing stream
Well, I think-
of excess receipts.
If I can
Go
just,
ahead.
to respond to Steve's comments on my comments, is that I don't think the people of the town, the taxpayers, would begrudge us any money at all. I think that there's a lot of deferred maintenance that hasn't been done, both in facilities and in infrastructure, and that a lot of the frustration within the community is that we're told that there isn't money for this, that, or the other thing. You know, we can't repair our roads, we can't take good care of our buildings, and yet for 3 or 4 years we've had it nearly $1 million or $1.5 million. So, you know, I would argue that no, we haven't been budgeting correctly. You know, the point should not be to come out at the end of in my opinion, to come out at the end of the year with a big surplus. The point should be at the end of the year to have provided the necessary services with that money that the taxpayers deserve and expect.
Well, and that's pretty much exactly what I was gonna say, and I briefly talked to Chris about this today. I mean, that's why, under financial updates, I mean, what we need to do is, within the next couple of weeks, I mean, we have a meeting next Wednesday, and then we have a meeting on the 23rd, and I think at one of those meetings, we really need to, articulate what the financial articles are gonna look like for special
Right.
town meetings, so that the committees have a chance to look at that. But we also need to know, all right, so we have trended with this surplus each year. What haven't we done with it? How are we budgeting properly? Because that is gonna directly tie into our budget message which is gonna have to be developed in a couple weeks through mid-October.
What I can tell you, what I've said before, and I don't want to sound like a broken record about this, is that that there's been proper but almost exclusive focus on the numbers themselves and not the services underlying them.
Right.
What I'm trying to do is broaden the conversation and say, okay, well, what is it we're trying to achieve? What are we achieving, actually? What are we trying to achieve? What is the goal of the community to achieve? And that's starting. And I'm going to have some of that this fall, we'll have some more of that this spring. But it's going to take a little time to drive the ball through all of this. And again, you're talking about roads, Karen. You know, the question is, can we live with potholes for a week or a month, or whatever, or not? Do we want to get our roads on a more frequent repaving schedule? How do we want to deal with the other issues about the roads that are non-public? Do we incorporate them through action as a public way, or I mean, so, and what kind of resources would that take if we did that? What would that mean? These are all conversations that have to take place. And with Mark, I mean, he and his guys have done great work on facilities, but there's bigger questions about this building and some others, and just some routine things. And he's been great, and it's about sitting down. We're working to try to figure out, what are the standards we're looking to set, and what does it really cost? And do you want an A, or do you just be okay with a B plus? Or something. And again, we're going to be working towards those. And that's requiring data. It's going to require a little bit deeper dive into some of this. And this is the first time we're going to have a chance to do it. So, and we've already been doing it. And again, remember, the goal in a government, it's just a reality. I mean, private sector is a very different beast. You can't run deficits in the public sector. can't. So there's no, you can't mid-course correct and change your tax rates or add new fees. Well, you can add new fees, I guess. It's a little dangerous and dicey to do that. So you always want to run so that you're tilting a little bit to the black. Not a lot, okay, because that could get silly, but healthy margins are 3 to 5%, just to be, I mean, and then if they're so consistent over a period of time, you build them into the budgeting process. So they so they don't go up any higher anymore, but they kind of stabilize, and there's ways of doing that. And maybe by the time we get to the budget and, later this fall and into early next year, we'll be there and say, okay, we really are okay, here's the next projection. There is money in stabilization. I don't know, but there is a bigger, broader conversation, and we're beginning it already, which is good. The good news is that we're having the conversation. It's September 2nd, and we have time to continue that conversation.
I just want to, excuse me for a sec, I think want to express, I see the window as very small, so I really want to make sure that each meeting we are moving really close to the finish line in terms of some of these big conversations, because, I mean, we've kind of left the town hall renovation, and there's a lot of big chunk of money conversations that we haven't really queued up yet for this budget year and looking at FY16, and I think I'm just saying, please know that we're gonna have to be aggressive about making these conversations and getting them on the agendas in literally the next 4 meetings.
So
Because then we're at the end of October.
So between now and next meeting, we will have talked with the water department. I think we'll have a little bit better, clearer thoughts for you on where water is, because that's something that you charged us to look at, and it's
Right.
important. And then we'll also have, we'll say, hey, we've looked at the free cash, these are our thoughts. Obviously, then other people are gonna weigh in, and advisory and others, and that's primarily advisory. And that's how the process will go, and we're ahead of things. I mean, there are some little tweaks we have to make in the budget, things that happen since July. Little ones, nothing big,
Yeah,
but you
not
correct them now,
substantial,
then they don't become a problem later on.
And you wanted to say something, and then?
No, that's
Okay.
okay.
No,
And then do you
no,
want to
it's
give
fine.
us just a quick little how we're trending right now in terms of
I
this
haven't-
fiscal year? or-
haven't had
I
a
mean, it's only a
chance to
couple
look
months,
at
I
it,
know.
but it's really-
Right, nothing
There's-
crazy has happened.
No, for 2 months, nothing.
Okay.
That's what I mean, there's just small little items that we might have to take care of at town meeting, but they're so, they're
Okay. There's not going to be any
no big
surprises,
huge,
really?
no.
Okay.
Nothing that's.
Bills of prior year, and,
You never know what committees will present.
well, they haven't seen me, so I don't.
Mr.
There's
Pescatore,
any
do you wanna-
finances.
Do you want to weigh in on anything?
I have a couple of comments I could make.
Come on up.
It's not finance enough, Peter, you're right.
No.
Peter Pescatore, Advisory Committee. Just for perspective, 3 years ago, we had almost no stabilization funds. We had been drawn down because of the water problem to almost zero. We had a negative free cash position. So over the next couple of years, we have been building up stabilization funds. The general fund is about 5%, which is good. I recommend that, from my perspective, we should continue to fund that.
The
Okay.
stabilization account.
Yeah, the money should go into stabilization, and not stop at 5%, which I recommended before. As far as Chris's 2% of whatever, I think you need to look at it a little closer. The schools don't turn back any money, zero. They spend all their budget, and it's their budget, and they're welcome to spend it. I have no gripes about that at all. So all of the funds that come back from the town side. And you look at the town side, there's $10 million in department spending and about another 8 or 9 in the reserve stuff, okay? Which are fairly fixed, those don't vary a lot. The 100, 'cause they're up there because they don't, they're by fiat, they're not, there's not a lot of variability.
You mean the enterprise funds? In the
No, no,
general
I'm
budget?
talking-
You
Health
mean the,
and pension
got it,
and-
got
I'm
those things,
talking
yeah,
about the
sorry,
stuff
yep,
that's
yes,
taken out.
Yep.
So that's not really variable other than the money for the medical premium, which
Right.
was a windfall of 180 months.
Might not be.
So all of the give back of the $1 million, $1.5 million actually, comes from revenue and departments.
And the revenue side was about $500,000. So that's, that's good, but that's really one part of it. And to Steve's point, the real number's $1,500,000, $1,600,000. Because of the 600,000 that was
Allocated.
taken out as
Right.
an anticipation of excess free cash in the special town meeting the prior year. So if you look at the base of $10 million and getting,
$1,500,000.
well, $500,000's revenues, take that out. And $1 million is, and you take out a couple of hundred for the medical, so you get down to the
8%.
base,
It's 8%.
yeah, it's more like 8%, because that's really where it's coming from, just for perspective.
Got it.
No, it's a good-
I mean, Chris is right, I mean, when he talks about the general municipal da-da-da-das, they all look at it that way. Well, I don't look at it that way. I look at it where it really comes from.
Well, as a perspective, Peter, that you're right, and it's, the numbers are generated from those sources.
That are variable, that can be variable.
No, what I'm driving at, they come from one side of the ledger,
They
if you
do.
will. The other piece that is also important to note is that while we look at this, and I look at this and say, oh my God, I'm paying more taxes. Of course, any number of people have similar reactions to it, and any other number of people are somewhat oblivious to it. The fact is, we still have needs.
Sure.
And I think that's part of the discussion is, what are we missing?
Right.
And, that Karen began to touch on that with
Well, I think,
maintenance and
I
so
think
on.
Chris has, got the right attitude. Let's
Right.
look and see if the quality of our services is correct, should it be enhanced or
Yeah.
moved around. But, and I don't have any, any
Right.
problem with that at all. I'm just looking at the broader perspective is that we have come to a place where the stabilization fund, the major stabilization fund, is at equilibrium, about 5%. It's in a good place for, and most towns would feel okay. And that's gonna get bigger, because you gotta put it someplace, you can put it all in OPEB, you can put it all in capital, you can put it all anywhere. Okay, but we should continue to build the general fund, but if this is a trend, and I believe this is a long-term trend, that we are gonna see these surpluses, then at some point in the future, you really need to think about, do you need to do 2.5 in total?
Right.
Or can it be 2.25, or whatever? Because,
to
at
like
some
where
point,
I-
the stabilization fund is gonna be at a place where it's really, not prudent to put much more into it. You can always put a lot of money into the capital fund. We spent $1 million this year, in 14 on capital.
We've actually
which-
spent something in the order of $6.5 million over the past 10, which is enormous.
It's been quite
Well,
a
the
bit.
capital,
Yeah.
the capital, that
No,
balloon
that's
was-
not a bad thing. I would say
No,
it's,
no, no.
it's
I
long,
mean,
it's been long needed.
We put a lot of money in the capital, especially last year, we put $1 million in it last year.
Right.
Well, we're getting a lot more money, because we raised fees, we got a tremendous
Yeah,
amount,
well,
and
that's,
that is another.
but I wanna try to
another
stay,
thing.
stay
Toll
on the
Brothers, too, your
perspective
building
part of
permits.
Well,
it.
like
New growth
perspective, I
are gonna
understand.
start to slow
Well,
down, though,
but
I
I'm
think.
trying to
Just-
think of ways we get the money.
Right.
You make some very valid points though with respect to the sources of the,
Well, you can, if
the
you wanna hear
excess.
my age-old argument that there's finite revenue stream. There's very few places, there's not a lot more buildable lots,
Yeah,
and,
that's-
there's 400 or 500.
Yeah, building permits are probably gonna go down, because we
Yeah.
kept assuming that
There's-
Toll Brothers were over, but it's still not, so.
You know,
but
400 or
that's
500
another-
more
There's still a lot
building
of land,
sites,
there's
and-
still a lot of land.
But there's no shopping malls coming in, there's no big, office buildings, there's no recreational, large public recreational facilities or whatever. So, at some point, that revenue stream flattens out, or, well, it just flattens out. You can't just squeeze any more out of it, you gotta find new sources of revenue, so.
yeah, you're talking about the new growth that we
Yeah.
have been able to experience.
Right, that's gonna end.
So,
Okay.
there's a
Great.
couple of vectors going on, and so, and you flatten out, you might wanna be thinking about
Having that.
longer term, your tax policy is my own.
So I,
Not this
also,
year,
if I may
maybe not
just-
next year or the year after, but you need to start thinking about it.
yes,
I do want to say, it is true that it's the town side that generates this free cash, but the town side has to generate the free cash, because we're judged on the overall. I mean, that's the truth. So we, so that, it just,
Well, I gave you the caveat that my view is different than
no, I understand.
municipal 101.
I understand, so, but we are judged on the whole.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're most welcome, and just, I
Thank
mean,
you.
this is gonna be on our agenda for the next,
But by the way,
this whole
we're having a better,
discussion.
this is a much better conversation than the other one.
Which
But
other?
this-
Well,
No, I'm saying it's
Oh.
better to be on this side of the
Oh,
ledge
yes,
than the other
yeah,
side.
We've
the
been
other
there,
side, yeah.
yes,
Right.
yeah.
Aside from that, though, it is worth recognizing that, if you're turning back from an operational standpoint, a substantial sum of money, it's also ought to be we ought to acknowledge that there are some fairly diligent folks in our organization with respect to expenditures of funds, because it's
Managing
not.
their budgets.
They're managing there are department heads who are managing their budgets with an eye towards the taxpayer, and that's a big deal.
Yes, so
Um,
it's good. I appreciate you mentioning that.
One thing just for the future, and we asked for it in our packets are kind of a list of the fees, which, you know,
Well, she had, they have.
maybe we, just the board should keep on there each week, keep this with you, but a couple of years ago, when we raised fees, we didn't do so, you know, willy-nilly. I mean, we had a lot of discussions about them, and we looked at comparable fee structures in other communities. So, Chris and Mary, I don't know whether that still exists, where we looked at other adjacent, I mean, you know, when we took the beach RTF and brought it from wherever it was up $15 or whatever, I mean, we were looking at Duxbury and Hingham and Situate and other communities, and I don't know whether those metrics still exist, because I don't know, I like looking at comparables. I think it, you know, when you can just say our fees are too high, or we have too many fees or whatever, but if they're in line with what other adjacent communities or similar communities are, you know, I mean, if you're getting $25 for a, I don't know, one-day liquor permit, and every other town's doing 150, it just helps inform the conversation so that we have a better
did get
sense.
One
Silly
item
stickers
that
less
I've
than
had.
Situate.
On
And beach.
fees,
And,
on
sorry.
fees, that continually people that have several children, and they're unhappy of paying so much more for blue bags because they have to bring all kinds of stuff for children. I think families suffer under the costs, the increased cost of the blue bags, and I know we did some accommodation for beach stickers for the elderly, and I think that's something we should look at, whether.
You know,
Well,
I would argue families are getting it all around, 'cause at the
Well,
schools,
well,
they're paying the bus
everything,
fees and the
everything,
sports
well,
fees
that's
and
what they
everything,
should pay
but.
for.
Yeah, but this is one of the
That's the whole
baskets
idea.
that they're dealing with, that's all.
To pay per bag.
Anyway,
The users
we're not
pay
gonna discuss
for the
fees
service.
tonight, I'd like to kind of move on,
Yeah,
but.
Okay,
excuse me,
that's
but do
fine.
we discuss fees on an annual, at a certain time each year, or
Yeah,
should?
we will. We'll do
we?
that.
We did 2 years ago,
Go.
and then I don't know that we revisited them last year. I
No,
think
we
we
probably
thought
did.
about it, but.
I'm taking what you've asked for as an update of the comparable, so we could do that. We'll take a look at us.
Thank
compared
you,
to other
because
communities.
I do wanna
Yeah.
discuss it, especially as, again, we look at developing
towns,
FY
yeah.
sixteen.
Right, would you,
You know?
That's fine.
particularly in light of the fact, if we have these huge surpluses, and I remember from watching that, when we.
I wouldn't describe it.
Okay.
I know.
Well, we had healthy
I got
surpluses.
uncomfortable too.
They're not you.
Excuse me,
Health
no,
insurance.
you're right, I said that, you're right. But if we have surpluses, and I think we put a lot of these fees in during a time of financial crisis, it might be nice to revisit
just
it
2
and
years
give the
ago.
people back some
Just 2
of the
years
money
ago.
that they ponied up to help us through the crisis. Does that make sense?
Yeah, except I don't know that that's actually why, it wasn't
No, it
really
wasn't
crisis
put in that
management.
way, no.
It was trying to get them in line with comparable communities, to be honest with you.
But anyway, I think we
We
should.
did happen to be in
Yeah,
crisis
that's right.
mode, but that's not why.
That's exactly what it was done.
Thank you.
Right, and I
The-
think, but I think to Kevin's point, it just is a different way of saying what I was saying, is that we really need to justify to people the fees, the taxes that they're paying, and how we're allocating them, and I believe that Chris's new approach is going to help to do that in a great way.
I think the underlying question, which I think you've talked about, Will, is what's the split between a base tax or a fee for service? And that, again, it's very easy to do with a rec sense or some other things, but
Right, they're buying
that's what a
program.
paper throw is all about too. I mean, some people just, my prior community, you just paid a tax as an ad valorem tax on your house. So it was all based on property taxes, so it doesn't actually, so you could throw away a lot or a little, didn't matter, all was part of your property taxes. Here and again, I think the state is driving towards this anyway. They want people to pay as you throw to control solid waste. That's so, but again, the real dynamic is, what's the split between a tax and a fee? What's the balance? And that's an ongoing conversation.
All right.
That's right.
We'll keep this going.
Okay.
I'd like to, thanks, Mary.
Oh, thank you.
I'd like to
Thank you.
move us on.
Thank you.
Can I get
Um,
a digital copy
Peter.
of the certificate,
What's your
the certification?
Oh, yeah, well, I thought you got one, okay.
I didn't get
We'll
one.
forward it to
Could you
you.
forward it to?
I'll forward it to you.
I need to pass
I didn't get it in
on
the
board.
email either.
Yeah,
It was from DLS like a week
Yeah.
ago, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
it was,
it's
oh,
actually-
I thought it was sent out today.
No,
It was
no,
in,
it's
it's
last
in your
month.
mail,
Wednesday.
you commented on it, I think.
Okay, well then I did get
It
it.
went to the whole board, but
I
I'll send it.
remember getting it from DLS.
Yeah,
I
it was
thought this
DLS.
was something different
No,
that
no,
came
no.
out today.
Neither.
My misunderstanding.
Because we realized that Martha hadn't gotten it because.
That's what confused
Right.
me. Thank you.
So, we'll probably, the goals and objectives discussion is really just, a title, where, as a part of every meeting, we'll discuss something. So, just a couple of things on here, I wanna see if, the board, wants to talk about setting dates for, the warrant for special town meeting. So there's a date certain at which we call special town meeting, we announce it. I mean, we've made the date, but that's not the same as calling it. And then there's 7 days from that point that the warrant is open for petitioned articles. And then Karen has mentioned whether we would also like to, set a date, maybe it's 14 days, that, any committees, and I'm gonna use CPC, I know they have nothing coming up this fall, or at least I anticipate they don't have anything. But it just, if they were to, that they would have 15 days from the call, and this is just for discussion, it's not, I'm
I
not
think that's a good
prescribing
idea
it.
for committees, because we've just come through the summer and they might not have thought about things.
Right, I mean, and then that, are we giving them enough time, but the other side of it is when you back up from November 17th, and, the warrant has to be in people's hands, whatever, 10 days prior, we wanna give the committees enough time to evaluate them, especially before they get to us for recommendations.
I suggest we simply announce that we intend to call
Yep.
for a special
Yeah.
town meeting, for the sake of argument, the first meeting in October.
I was thinking even sooner, to be honest.
I started backing up the dates and it's really scary.
It might be, what I'm thinking, and it's not a magic date, Karen, maybe it's the third week of September. My point is that sitting in the audience tonight is the publisher of the local paper.
No, publisher.
Not editor.
That's all right, you deserve it, it's about time.
Editor. The controller of content, okay?
That's wrong.
And if the Mariner were to be good enough to simply recognize that we've already identified the dates at which we intend to hold special
we
town
haven't
meeting.
voted.
But if,
Hold
but if
on.
we do that, aren't we de facto calling it? And doesn't that set the clock
No,
running?
all we've done so far is identify the dates on which we wish to hold it, and identify that those dates are clear within the facilities which we would like to hold it. The point being at that, now you've got the conversation started for any petitions that might come forward from the citizens, okay? And obviously, Chris is already working with the town, or from the town side, to determine what might be needed at that end. That gives us the ability, as you were saying, backing into it, to identify the point at which we should call it.
Okay, so, just, these dates are just kind of loosey-goosey, but I was trying to figure it out today. The advisory board has up to 20 days before, so for the special town meeting, they would have to have anything in by October 29th. However, when you take in the number of days it takes, if you're allowing 15 business days for printing and mailing, it would have to go to the bylaw committee, and hopefully, town council would be working on it on an ongoing basis, but hopefully town council will get a final draft the same time bylaw, which would be October 20th, which is 9 days before advisory. Advisory still has 9 days to put an article in. I mean, we don't have a lot of time here. But I mean, we can do it at the next meeting, but,
Right, I'm recommending that you set it as soon as the 10th. You call the meeting officially
As soon as the 10th.
September 10th.
September 10th.
Which is our next meeting, it's on a Wednesday.
Because there is a clock, I mean, there is a clock, and we wanna, you know, I think we wanna get things locked up by the end of this month if at all possible.
Okay.
Only because it is a special time meeting, there should be a limited number of, there should be a limited universe, and you wanna be able to kick around the items. We have plenty of time for annual to be able to kick things around. and do
Right,
things.
right, no, I'm thinking only of special at the moment.
Because I just think that there's a lot of other things on it. Normally, spring is, you know, we're all focused on town meeting. There's a lot of other things we're working on right now, and I want to make sure this goes cleanly.
Okay.
absolutely.
And again, if you want to go to the 23rd, you could do that too. It just tightens things up a little bit. So.
No, my only interest in recommending a later date, or suggesting a later date, not recommending, was that we might want to have enough of an announcement out there to, if there was going to be something generated from the citizens level, that it would come in, that's all.
Yeah, and I think some of this has already been out there, but I remember it's a very high threshold for a special town meeting anyway, the numbers, but.
Well, that's true.
They only
106
have 7 days.
Yeah, 7 days.
But we ought to think about giving them more than 7 days.
No,
We can't,
that's
that's the law.
prescribed.
That's the law.
That's the law.
So yeah, I mean, the annual town, special town
Hey,
meetings are called for
approaches you.
very, very specific purposes typically, and in this case, it's really more, it's financial and some housekeeping.
Is it the same for annual meetings, only 7 days for citizens?
No, annual meeting is a ton of
So
time.
we can discuss that maybe.
Oh, yeah, no, there's a very large.
75
and
days.
it's only 10 signatures for.
Okay.
Look, I mean, I'm quite all right if you want to identify this as an agenda item for the 10th. I think
Yep.
it'd be fine.
I just wanted to say,
I take the recommendation.
I had not formally notified Dan of your proposed dates until today. Dan Evans, I know he knew
Oh.
about them, but he didn't. So I formally sent him an email today. I said, here are the dates. If you have any concerns or questions, please let me know. So he thanked me for sending it, but he hasn't. I should give him a little time to just double check to make sure he's okay.
Well,
He's kind of an
we-
important member of
We
the whole
wouldn't be
thing,
able
so.
to open and close the warrant unless we knew that the
Right.
3 people,
Right.
town
Can do it.
council,
Town council's been
town
vetted.
moderator, and town clerk.
Yeah.
So 2 of the 3 are clear. I just give me a little. By next week, I should know from Dan for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
but hopefully by
And the facilities.
That's been cleared already.
That's
I
been
saw,
cleared already.
I did see Barbara a week or 2 ago, and she said they were good.
Good.
Okay.
But I'll double check that.
Okay. So hopefully by the end of this week, because we'll need to get the agenda set, that we'll have confirmation from Dan,
Yes.
and then we'll be good to go. Okay. Just to discuss, one of the things on our goals and objectives was having some kind of a job fair.
I'm
Sorry.
so sorry.
Yep.
At one point, we had talked about having an informational sheet for the citizens petitions. Is that,
Well, I have been
that?
working with with Carol on, not only on the citizen, the committee handbook, but on a town meeting handbook.
yeah,
Oh,
that's a
yeah.
totally different.
Right,
Right.
and I don't think I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get something together as quickly as I would like for special. But I think we will most certainly have a much more comprehensive package.
Is there,
Well, I was just specific to, I think, I think that we had discussed having just even a simple one sheet that said, if you're going to submit a citizen's petition, you know, here is the format in which it must be submitted, here are the dates, here are the number of signatures you need to get, they need to be registered voters.
Good. Why don't we do that for the next meeting? We should actually do a draft of that up, and when we issue.
Would you like me to draft that out and send it to Tracy?
Your.
Or Jen?
Jen has some samples.
Yeah.
She already does.
Today, she came
Okay.
out
Oh,
with
she came up
different
with it.
towns.
Okay.
So that when we promulgate when the meeting is gonna be, at the
Mhm.
same time, we're gonna say, citizens wanna participate, here's your guide.
There's
guidelines.
guidelines will be posted
Beautiful.
on the
But-
website.
But we're not gonna have a full-blown town meeting.
No.
Just,
But we'll do more in the town meeting.
just some general guidelines. You
Yeah,
have,
for
they're
spring we'll
due,
have something.
it can say the special town meeting, November 17th, articles are due, blah, 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 you need this many
Yeah.
signatures.
Do we gonna have one for committees to have that same guidance?
Oh,
No,
they-
Well,
because-
Well, I think
because
we
we
need to
put
have
them on
that,
the warrant.
I think we need to have that discussion as to
The guidance, what we're saying.
a
today.
deadline on it, what's
Yeah.
enough time. And then I think it would be,
Yeah.
So-
then we would have to notify all the
I
committees.
just think it would be good, once we declare the meeting, at the
Right.
same time,
Mhm.
give this guidance to the citizens and to the committees. I think that's what
Right.
we've been saying, and that's, I think will give a lot of good structure and,
So
and
they-
good guidance to the community.
Right. The committee, any committee articles would be at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen. There'd be our articles on there or not,
But that should be
we
clear,
could-
'cause that is not
we
clear
should
to
let
a
them
lot of
know
people,
that
right,
there's,
right.
you know,
What
if
the
somebody
town-
has something floating around that's gonna have to be addressed at special town meeting, we should know about it by September
Exactly,
23rd,
right.
period.
I mean, we've already been talking internally about that to make sure that this is out there, but I mean, there's one, for example, is a zoning clarification. It was a district that,
Do you think that'll happen?
yeah,
Special?
it's already in process. I hope it will, because there was a mistake in the description of a zoning district. And we did just realize, it was going to the JS map, our person handling it said, hey, the shape doesn't look right. So it's a little thing, but I know that they're already working on that.
I mean,
Don't you
specific,
have,
these,
don't you have to have those easements too, that we talked tonight for the?
Yeah, we can put it right,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
as of, right, but no, there's only one, but yes, we
One,
have
yeah,
an easement.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
oh, okay, no, that's fine, Ruth. Now it's gone out of
No,
my head.
You-
Go ahead, Diana.
No, I was just gonna say, why don't we move on? I just wanna keep us rolling through the
Yeah.
agenda.
Oh,
Okay.
I just wanted to say, Chris, the reason that I've been, sorry, Steve, I hear you grunting, that,
I'm trying to clear the
groaning,
road.
not grunting, groaning,
No, that's,
that,
Okay.
that,
grunt is,
that, last time it appeared that we weren't gonna have a lot of, articles and everything, and then at the very last minute, there was this flurry of activity from the Water Department and the Sewer Commission, and things were being rushed through, and it just was a you-know-what, and, I don't think there's any need for that. If they have something, I mean, there's always an emergency, but things like that are not an emergency. The committees and the board should know, should be thinking about it, should present it in a time where it can be fully vetted and vetted for the public and not be rushed through and be
And-
pulled at the last minute.
And that is the message that we can send out. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
we're just not gonna entertain that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
and that's our role, proper role as select the board, in my
That's right.
view, to manage the process in an orderly way to, so
Well, I
that
don't
citizens and
think that
committees
it's
can
ever
participate.
really been
But we can
done,
start
and
now,
I
that'd be
think
good, that's good.
better late than never.
You've
Yeah.
given direction, so.
Thank you.
Taking 300
All right,
years, but it'll be okay.
So just on the job fair, which is just something that I would love to just kind of check off of our list of things to do.
What is the job?
Well,
fair?
it was discussed at the, our goals and objectives workshops of just having an opportunity or having a presence, whether it's a table or just something where we, at that time, it would be in the spring most likely, we have information, we have the application for committees, for appointments, reappointments, we have a committee handbook at that point, and, we have, descriptions of every committee and what their charge is and all
Well,
of that put together.
Where would you have it? That's,
Well, that's what I was gonna suggest, cause the idea of job fair came up, and, I talked to, just in passing, talked to Ted and Carol and to see whether it might be something we could do at the Health and Rec Fair. Because so many people come, it really does get families who are signing up for rec as well as older citizens, and kinda everybody in between goes there to get their blood checked or their skin checked, or sign up for rec, or learn about other opportunities in town. To me, it seems like a kind of a natural place for the committees in town or involvement in the community. And
Yeah.
actually, at that time, we might even consider having a little workshop an hour ahead of time that's a warrant review. Because,
Well,
by the
the
end of
warrant-
March, we're gonna have a pretty good idea of what's coming their
well, the warrant
way.
review is good, and, as I say, we used to have it with the legal and the voters, and that was terrific,
Yeah.
plus the candidates. And I don't know if you could have it where people go in and out there. I thought maybe you'd have to do it.
The actual warrant review could be there, but we'll have the town meeting handbook, so it would be a
Yeah,
good, it would be a good
okay,
day
yeah,
where,
yeah.
I do
we
the warrant review on a
rotate, or
separate
somebody's
day.
there, right?
Yeah,
And
that'd be great
we just
idea.
say, here's your town meeting handbook, I hope you're gonna be there on May 2nd, here are all these committees, here's so-and-so from the you know, the historic commission that can talk to you about what they do, if you know, like to dress up as Ben Franklin or whatever. So Ted was very
John Smith.
open to the John Smith. No, he'll be history by then.
Ben Franklin.
But Ted, I don't know, it just came to my mind,
Yeah.
came into my mind.
It's all right.
I just came from Washington DC, so who knows
You
what
don't have to-
historical character I'll come up with next. But Ted was very amenable to it. I don't know how the board feels about it. I think we could, I would
That's a good
kind of
idea.
like
Sounds
to
good.
say, let's just
It's
go
a
for
good way to
it.
actually do
That's a
something on
very
this.
good
Yeah.
idea.
Then we
Yeah.
can,
Yeah,
as the
maybe
committee
become an annual
handbook
thing.
and the town meeting
Yeah.
handbook come
Yes,
together,
yes.
then we can,
Good
you know,
idea.
we can brand whatever it is that we're gonna be.
I mean, you know, eventually maybe we could have it be the
Awesome.
recreational, health and civic affairs day. you know,
Right,
and-
right.
Well, it's
And,
too bad
um,
it's on Sunday. I'm still old fashioned. It's a Sabbath to keep it holy. I had a
Jewish Sabbath is Saturday,
No, I had
so.
a Scottish Presbyterian grandmother who believed we didn't cook, we didn't do anything, we went to church and we thought good things. And a little of that, and my mother was the same way, and we always had family gatherings then, so. I think people have gotten away with it because with the computer age and so forth, and everybody busy. Sundays
The
seems
only
to
day
be
there's time.
yeah, they
Golf
don't
day.
give it. That's the
And
reason.
you know, also, one of our goals is participation, is the numbers. We
Mhm.
wanna do things that we can get the most people at, and they've had
Oh,
great
that's a good
success
one,
in
yeah.
terms of the
Now,
crowds.
the committees would be invited to participate, to be there, to maybe do
Oh, yeah.
recruiting and,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, 'cause some of them
Yeah.
wanna look
Yeah.
for members and
Yeah.
historical commission can be
Yeah.
telling about what the committee, what they
Yeah,
do.
and we're not gonna get everybody to do
I think
everything,
it'd
but
be
I
good.
think it's.
You could
I-
run committee members through health screenings.
There you go,
Great,
right,
great.
right.
And then send
Certain
them off.
committees, go get your hearts
Then
checked.
send them all off to recreation.
You elected officials,
Right.
they're
Yeah.
getting
So we
their
could
blood
end up
pressure
having a-
drawn over there, or a massage.
I
Okay.
think that's good.
And then next week, Paul Durensis is gonna come. He was unable to get here, for tonight's meeting. And he's anxious to, as we mentioned the last time he was here, to get a date, on the calendar to do some kind of a committee workshop. So I just wanna touch on that with everybody here, you know, what are we envisioning? I mean, I had grand illusions of having you know, a chairmanship kind of summit. I felt the groans palpably around this room, so I won't necessarily go there, but, and I also think that the last workshop that Deutsch Williams gave, was pretty much on ethics, and it was frankly very boring, and it was just kind of the, you know, don't hire your brother-in-law to pave the road kind of thing. I really want something a little more practical. You know, I'm happy to see what you all think should be covered. I think it's just some of you're now a committee member, here are the things that you need to do.
Responsibilities, yes.
Your responsibilities, you do need to take the ethics test, it's gonna be up online, whatever, and just kind of walk through some of the just very basic open meeting law.
It would seem to me that maybe something, that we or Chris or somebody, as the supervisor, you coordinate committees and so on, work out something along that lines of an agenda with Durensis that isn't dominated and leaning towards things that'll scare people, but it'll get, and then
I think it should be
try it out.
very, pardon the word, but very superficial. And have the pertinent information, but not get into all the legalistic and whatnot, and move it along. Diana's correct.
I think the word is practical, just very practical.
Right, yeah.
You're in this role now, here's the.
And maybe as a partly positive and motivational, that the,
Kind of bullet.
to make them feel good about the committee, and here's the,
Yeah.
I think we should try it this year and see how it goes.
There
Maybe
are-
we do it every year.
There are some elements that have been touched on in the past, and you know, for example, as a committee member, you're duty bound to enter any discussion without a predetermination until you've heard all evidence.
Absolutely.
You know, there is an expectation of an orderly procedure within a committee for executing its agenda.
Right.
Now, I mean, typically it follows Robert's Rules of Order, but however it goes, it has to be an orderly procedure. Those sorts of things, which, you know, they seem rudimentary to anybody who's sat on a committee for any length of time. But if you never have sat on a committee, or, or maybe you just haven't had the opportunity to deal with one that has had good structure, or, I'm sorry, had structure, then maybe this will be new information, and information that you can actually put to use in your activities.
So the next question is, agreed, and the next question is, how do we incentivize people to come? Back in college,
20s.
there was one way, but, I mean, I don't think we can make it mandatory.
I think you could strongly
Can we
encourage new members to attend, and then anyone else who wants to come. And the goal, by the way, Carol has this little subcommittee. She's working on our little working group, I should call it,
Mhm.
and she's working on a committee handbook now. So they're moving on that.
Well, that's
She
good.
does have the election next week, so she's going to get a little preoccupied between now and then.
Well,
Right.
that may be an incentive, you get your committee handbook if you go to the meeting.
No, we need them to have it no matter
No.
what.
If we
you
were
don't
concerned
wanna do
about
it.
attendance, why not invite the general citizenry, because then some people may come and see what
That's
it's like
true.
to be part of a committee, maybe next year I'll be a part of a committee.
It's an open meeting, and
Open
we can
meeting,
certainly
yeah,
put it
so-
out there.
Yeah,
I doubt that we'll get a lot, but it doesn't matter.
Let's try it and see,
Right.
yeah.
I'm more concerned with some of the people sitting on committees who have, busy meeting calendars, we all do, trying to get them to come to this, because
Okay.
we want them to come to it.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Madam Chair,
it's true.
we have some stuff we have to approve here.
Are you moving us along?
Huh?
You
Are you
see,
changing
you
the
see the
subject?
chairs doing that.
No, it suddenly dawned on me, because we were going down the agenda, and I thought maybe we were, I see you've got it on here.
Yeah.
I jumped, my eye jumped, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, just give me one more second to wrap
No,
this
no,
up.
no,
I'm as
no, no,
anxious
no,
as you
that's
are to move
okay.
along.
That's okay,
Absolutely.
that's okay.
So, I don't know,
I
does
think-
does
I think
anybody,
this
if
is
we do
very
this
good.
at the last week of September, first week of October on, a Thursday maybe, or?
I'd say
That's
do it,
fine.
Assuming
see what
we-
happens, yeah.
Yeah, I think
That's
this is.
how you
If
learn
anybody
and-
has any
Excellent.
incentive ideas,
I think there's general ideas we discussed, we would have.
do we have any kind of budget? We can do
Well-
roll-up sandwiches? Maybe we get somebody to donate them?
We can find something.
Bring some, always bring some,
What if,
We could have Martha bake.
I could bring
Martha
some
Bay, that would be
cookies.
much
Could you bring some cookies, you could do that. I know I'll be there for
I've
them.
got some other day over there.
Yeah.
perhaps if each of
Where are
the
they?
liaisons,
Reached
at least
out.
reached out
That's right.
to the chairs,
Ah,
but also to
Funny
people that
day.
we have just appointed who have not been involved before.
yeah.
Or maybe people who have only been involved for a year.
I think that's a great idea.
Do you want us to
Personal.
go back? I'll talk to Tracy in general, see if we can't find some dates. I'll talk to Carol and
Mhm.
Paul, obviously.
Talk to Carol, and if Paul can't do it,
Or one of his staff.
maybe Lou
Well,
could or somebody, yeah.
The Concom meets first and third Thursdays, and you should try to avoid that
Yeah,
day.
I think we should
That day.
avoid it.
Yeah.
So,
And they
okay.
have such a
So you'll
heavy
check with
agenda.
Carol and Paul, and then
Yep.
maybe, we'll settle on a date official next week. Okay.
We'll see what we can do for next week.
All right.
See this. See them.
And a location too,
Apologize.
so,
Don't worry about it.
It's okay, I was looking at this and I didn't want to say.
No, I'm actually glad you're moving us along.
Pleasant location,
So,
yeah.
we have a
Impact
one-day
attendance,
liquor
okay.
license, have I got everything? Yes, licenses and permits. We have a one-day liquor license for the Historical Society Clam Bake, which is, will be held on Sandy, Beach on Saturdays, oh my gosh, that's this Saturday, September 6th.
And it's a wonderful clam bake.
Sure is. Anybody wanna move approval for a one-day liquor license?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
To beat a dead horse, this is sort of like, they do this every year, they know the date.
No, this is only the second year.
Yeah, I mean, these are part of the checklist that we need to
Yeah,
work on getting.
get them in sooner.
Get 'em in sooner. I know somebody who waited to get a liquor license permit and came over to the town hall to get their liquor license for a very big fundraiser, and the board wasn't meeting, and, because it was, and, it's a very big deal. The board was able to get a quorum and do it, but it was, yeah, we need to let people know that we gotta do that stuff. There's also another license, for a road closure on September 14th for the St. Stephen's Annual Picnic. So let me just follow that.
Well, that was the 28th.
Do we know where the moon bounce is gonna be set up? Is it on the
It's over there
Robert
on the-
Jason, that,
On that little spot over there. They had it last year too.
you know, just, while we're on this.
Town property or their property?
It's town property.
Yeah.
So again, these are, it is town property. It's a very small event, it's probably something, again, as we get to, decisions on the events policy and the common use policy, that these are the kinds of things that, do creep up, and they're, you know, people from within town and whatnot, but we do need to try to make it as uniform a policy as possible. Anyway, so they're requesting the road close from 9:30 to 1 on Sunday, September 14th, with the
So-
moon bounce on town property.
So is this something we would consider an event?
If it's on town property, it would be.
It's borderline. Having an impact on public property, public facilities, parks, streets, sidewalks, right-of-ways, vacant land, parking lots, or the temporary use of private property. Yes.
You're,
The road, it's the road, they don't use the land, just the road.
They're using the town land for moon bounce.
Oh,
that-
the moon bounce,
is that
okay.
So
right
where do
down
they have
below
their
the hill,
picnic?
Tracy?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
You sure that's right down below the hill? So they're not gonna put it back in the courtyard?
On the common at all.
Oh, they had it over there last year.
Okay.
It was the same, I pulled out, actually, I think I might have it, the same letter last year. And the board just approved it as is, not as an event, just as like an annual.
Is there is there insurance policy on this?
They did not provide any
Nothing.
insurance.
Yeah,
If they're gonna have a moon bounce, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I
Yes.
think that,
Mhm.
I think we should have something for that.
yeah.
I think our approval should be contingent on that.
Yeah, it's town property, it absolutely should be.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, this is you know, my dear friends at St. Stephen's, but this is a prime example of why we need to have that checklist, so that when these applications come in to the office, it's not 4 days before a meeting, and you know, Tracy has the opportunity at that point to say, wait a minute, you know, we're gonna need some more information, the board's gonna need A, B, C, and D from you.
Yeah, we haven't heard from the police and fire department on this, have we?
Oh, there's nothing.
No, the road closure,
The road closing permit goes out to DPW,
They
police,
sign off on
fire,
it.
they
Yeah.
sign off.
Right.
Sewer,
But that does happen through this
Water.
office.
yes.
so this came in August 26th, asking for September 4th. Is that,
August 28th it came in,
Which was
I'm
Thursday.
sorry, received August, it's written August 26th.
yes.
Asking for a permit on September 14th.
Mm-hmm.
Or not, it wasn't even asking for a permit, it was more of an announcement.
Letting us
2.5
know.
weeks. Yep.
I'm not so certain you can do anything. I mean, if we're requesting, at the very least, permit applications for the use of roads and the like, and then there's the additional item with the, you know, putting a moon bounce on town property, we don't have any knowledge of insurance, et cetera. There's a lot more questions to be answered.
This seems to be a circumstance where they've been doing things for a long time and haven't.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like last year they were told that they really need to have a more formal application.
Sure.
So they went through the process, here they are.
Right.
They can be directed to move the moon bounce onto their own property, and it won't be an issue.
They don't really have
They've
the
got the-
property.
they've got
They're
the
on a
courtyard.
rock.
Well, no, they've got the courtyard in the back. The question is whether or not it's large enough.
Yeah, this issue being bring up, yes, there might be liability if something happens to the moon rock.
Right.
So-
Oh, there is, yeah.
You
We
know-
have to have an insurance
Yeah,
policy.
we have to have something, yeah.
This is an item that I would interpret as an event simply because of its uses. In this circumstance, would the board consider this office communicating with St. Stephen's our concerns and addressing them for the meeting on the 10th?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I think what you should ask them, you know, the question is, do we ask them to fill out one of these special event applications? Or are we just looking for an additionally insured?
No, I think the other item is the road closure.
Yeah,
And that happens does that happen, does that happen frequently where it's not part of a special event? That it comes through this office? I mean, is that something
Well, I
separate?
mean, like the farmer's market closes it, but they got approval to close it.
Right.
with The event application.
Yeah.
They never
Yeah.
filled out an event application before
Till-
this year.
Right,
And also
right,
you
I
have-
know,
you
Rome
have
wasn't
the-
built in a day.
And you
No,
also have
it-
the South Shore Arts Festival, they close.
Oh,
That's an
we
application,
fill
that's
everything out in
all. I know-
January.
No, I know you do that,
I say
I know
wait,
that.
but-
But
It's
I-
been
I'm
This
just
is
three
one of
years,
the few
but-
that just sends in a letter and just says,
Yeah.
hey, by the way, we're having our annual picnic. There's a
This
couple
is-
like that.
Yeah, no, we understand that.
There'll be 0 next year.
No, but
I know,
we don't, in
I know.
fairness, we never did, I looked at the vote from last year and the
Right.
board just, there was no questions asked, it was
Right.
approved.
I know.
Right.
Well, the
And
question.
in this, the point here is we're trying to get consistent with it, so
Right.
let's get consistent.
Well, also, there's increasing liability. We're a very, very
Right.
litigious society now, and we just don't wanna get involved with that.
No,
So
no,
how, does the board feel that they would be willing to vote on this, subject to, a additionally insured certificate being provided by the 10th? Or would you rather just, table this until next week?
I would like to know personally, that beyond an insurance certificate for use of town property with, you know, an entertainment device, that the public safety officers understand that there's a request for a road closure and they're aware of it.
Although, by nature, the road closure goes to all of them. You know what I mean? The road closure
But
application form,
that-
right? They
but
sign off on that.
On the last one though,
Yes.
that came to us, and we had it before
And-
us when we were making our deliberations, right? So I think we need to see on events, we need to see a completed application, we look at it, and we approve it or not approve
No,
it.
and
And you have to treat everybody the same.
right. To Tracy's point, however, there's, again, there are an awful lot of events like this that in the past have just would have been waved through. So there's going to be a transition on this one. We can either stomp on it and say, well, September 14th is not gonna work, fill out the application.
Right.
Or we can go back to them, which is what I'm proposing the board do, and ask them for an additional certificate and also to get an acknowledgement, whether you do it or whether they do it, but get an acknowledgement that they're requesting a road closure.
But the applicant should always do it, it shouldn't be on the town to do it.
No, I agree with it, but
Of course
the final element of that, of course, is just to let them know that next year, when they wanna do this again, this
They
is
have to go
gonna be
through the
considered an
process.
event.
Yeah, give
And I
them
think
an
once we
application.
have the new event policy and the new common use policy and all of that wrapped up, it would be worth sending out to, especially the town organizations that do have a traditional, that we do have a policy now, we do have an application, you will need to do that. The board is gonna be very firm with deadlines, and go for it, but we can't,
So-
I don't think we can cut them off at the knees.
We actually should, that's a very good idea, we should do a mailing to every organization that has done this ever.
Yes, and just say-
And say, hey, by the way, you need to do this, if
Yep.
you have any questions, call us now.
It's
Don't
no
wait- don't
fun
wait
zone
before.
now.
Exactly.
One of our questions would be in the interim, did they get that letter, and if they didn't, and we're in a situation like this,
So
then
your big issue is insurance, right? It sounds like.
Which insurance, and again, I wanna make certain, anytime there's a road closure, I mean, I've received a lot of input from citizens barking about road closures. Mostly it's based upon inconvenience and a lack of knowledge of the event. But my bigger concern is the ability for public safety to get up a road, okay? I want to know that public safety knows that there's been a request for a road closure and can accommodate that in the meantime.
And the easiest way to do that is, Tracy, I think just asking them to fill this out, it won't take very,
No.
it should,
It's
it
not
takes
onerous.
5 minutes. I mean, obviously, I'm sure the board would be willing to entertain the idea of waiving the $250 application fee, because I don't think they've ever done that before. And then we'll put it on the agenda for next week.
So you're asking me to have them fill out the event
Have them fill out the
application.
event
Okay.
form,
And we need to see the
And
insurance
we need
policy next week.
additionally insured, or whatever the insurance policy listing the town as an additional.
If, just, and just as a clarification, if in fact it's their intent to put the moon bounce
On the common.
no,
No.
on their own property,
Then
in
we
the
don't need
courtyard
it.
back there,
We
then.
don't need it.
Yeah, we don't need it.
We don't allow it on the common, right?
No, that's, that has been traditionally what they've done with it. We don't have a policy at the moment.
From what I understood, it was over here,
Would it be by the pond or on that little piece of land on the far side?
on the far side.
Yeah.
Side,
Oh,
Yeah.
Down in the flats.
Cross.
And that
Yes.
is kind of the off zone, like, I don't think people,
Is
you know,
that-
it's off, you know, it's not
I think
the
it's still
common.
part of the common.
No, no,
But
it
it
is,
is,
it
it absolutely
is.
is, and it's definitely town land.
Yeah.
Right. The only reason I'm laughing is because we're,
Right.
all over this, okay.
Of course, if they're, I assume they're already planning with their parish with the picnic being on the 14th. And if they don't know for sure it's gonna happen till the 10th, it's gonna be problematic for them to have a picnic.
I think we should.
I think it's fair to communicate to the parish that the board is inclined to move forward with it.
So long as they do their thing.
We want,
Yeah.
yeah, we
Yeah.
particularly want the police, I think, the fire
Right.
to sign
No,
off on it.
we got it.
An application, yeah.
But I think-
I'm
We
sorry.
have-
Right, we're not gonna throw
we're
them
looking to
through
be
any
calm,
hoops,
you
as
know.
long as there's
You're trying to
no,
set a precedent here that they have to fill it out, get the insurance.
Right. no tubs
It
of
won't be
fun.
a problem. No.
And then to the bigger picture, as Chris said, we need to lay out, once we do this policy, promulgate it, so
Right.
that this is,
Yeah, and we have to
Okay.
communicate, because it's gonna take a while.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know why the minutes are there. We have minutes from August 19th.
Will we have to climb back?
Didn't I just do both?
Oh,
Have I,
so what
I'm
is
sorry,
this?
are we
Oh,
all
the
looking at the
dancing?
same
We done
minute?
it? No, we
That's
did it.
John Smith.
John
That's the
Smith.
food for John
We
Smith.
did,
But that's not us, that's the Board of Health. That's a,
Right.
that's
Oh,
a,
right,
that's a
so
food
it's just-
permit.
it's just
Okay.
information.
We did
That's
that.
just informational.
So I believe we're moving on to the
Too many
minutes from
pieces of paper.
8:19. Does anybody have any comments on the minutes?
yeah, I did.
Okay.
On this first sentence here about the, Chairman Kennedy stated it was a clipboard on the door for anyone I'd like to speak during the period to sign and name and address. But from my memory, Selectman, from my memory, Selectman Quigley made, I thought, a good point that we all agreed on, which was that anybody, in this doesn't mean that anybody in the audience can't be called upon if they think of something during the conversation. I think that was stated at the time, unless, do you remember that?
I think I asked people to sign in with their name and topic specifically for public comment period, and that I'm usually inclined to acknowledge people.
Right, that point was made, and we
Right.
agreed to it, but I think that should be in the minutes.
Okay.
okay.
Is that all right, Karen? I mean-
It's fine, perfect.
Just saying something like the board,
Thank you, Kevin.
Well, I remember what she said was, is that in case this, if someone is sitting, so if someone is sitting in the meeting and they think of something or something
Maybe
is.
something as simple as that this, the chair will acknowledge,
Right.
at the chair's discretion,
Right.
public
Issue.
comment will be acknowledged on discussion items.
Right.
Is that good, Diane?
Mhm. Public comment,
Don't ask me to repeat it.
I won't.
something like that.
Thank you.
Public comment will be acknowledged at the chairman's discretion.
That's good.
During, okay, any other?
Yeah, the only thing I have was on page 4, under the selectmen update. It was in the vocational school, it's a Norfolk agricultural school. That's okay. It's just a little thing. And then I noticed that you, in some places, we list the people that we've appointed, but then under the town clerk, we didn't, but the list is attached.
Yeah.
Under election workers.
Okay, so do you want them listed?
I don't know.
I can do that, I'm happy to list it, it's not a big deal.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like 10 of them.
Yes, I can do that, that's fine.
Any other changes? Alright, is there a motion to approve the August 19th minutes as amended?
So made.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. They're ready to roll. Town manager update.
Okay, 3 quickies. First, the work on the basketball court upgrade that was funded by CPC funds is complete. It's all striped and it's ready to play
Great.
basketball on, so that's all good. And the restoration of the Lawrence Wharf Pavilion, also funded by CPC funds, is ongoing. And then they're in a race to make sure it's all done for next week. The plaque's in hand. The roof is there is a roof, so the roof is good. They're working on the metal piece, so hopefully that'll be done this week.
So they're actually working on the canopy.
It's been fixed. I was actually out Friday with Lori on the harbor, and I was watching them work from the.
What kind of a roof is it?
There's supposed to be a metal roof, a metal component to the roof, which they're still working on. So. The road repaving that was scheduled for Lower Pleasant, Cushing, and Summer has had to be postponed. There was a contractor equipment issue, which forced a delay, and Carlos and Brian are working to get them back on track so it does not, because those are fairly heavily traveled roads, to make sure that it doesn't impact school or any of that. That's why the goal was to have it done before. But as Carl pointed out to me, you let people know that it's going to happen if something breaks down. So, but it's still better to tell people it's coming, even if it breaks. So letting people know that we're still working on a new date. And the big news today is that the state officially announced awards in the competitive dam and seawall program. So myself, Brian Joyce, Ian Lister, and Diane were in Situate, where we were one of 13 communities, I think, that were awarded money. The town has received $1 million combination grant loan for the restoration and upgrade to the dam at the Bound Brook Dam at Beechwood Street.
That's wonderful.
So it's very exciting. I want to really thank Brian. He did an amazing amount of work. I want to thank Ian Lister for the assistance he gave him. And it was a great project.
And
So
Brian made a presentation too. He got up and spoke about what the funds were going to be used for in Cohasset. And we were all sworn to secrecy too. That was the crazy
Yeah. So
thing.
I
We
wasn't
weren't allowed to
hiding this
tell
from anybody,
anybody.
but I found out they didn't want it to be released in advance. So you officially all know. So it's very exciting. It was positive, and the design and permit process, Brian estimates to take about 12 to 18 months. So.
Takes how long?
About 12 to 18 months in the design and permit before we're actually able to do anything, because it is, it does regulate the town's water supply, and
Does
it goes
that
under a road.
include the cost of design?
Yeah, it included that money doesn't pay for design work, so hopefully we will spend, Brian's estimate is that the design will cost much less than that, and then the rest will be available for any construction, so.
That's great.
So it's good news. And we're still going to be working, I know we have some slots in the Environmental Bond Act that was approved, and we're going to be working with Representative Bradley's offices. And by the way, Senator Hedlund was there today too, and Representative Bradley's office. We want to work with them both to get those slots of money a little more concrete. I'm not super optimistic that they'll be locked in this fall. I think it's going to have to wait for the new administration, but at least they're there, and we'll do everything we can to get a priority list of it together. There's 4, and then we have 1 in an economic development bill, so we'll see what we can do.
Anything else? Peter has a comment.
The grant and loan, how does that split? Is it 50/50?
No, I'm still waiting for the final paperwork to see, but it's about 150, 160 grant, and the rest is a low interest loan. So.
And is the loan term loan?
Yes, I have to get on. Yes. I don't know how much of it we have to tap. We want to use the grant money first, but I believe we can first to pay for the design.
Yeah, and you'll draw whatever you need, and that'll
Right.
become the loan, but is it a 5-year or a 10-year?
I don't have any of that detail yet. They didn't have any of that for us today, so we're not gonna jump in until with that piece if it's not favorable. We want to use every free dollar we can first, and we'll figure it out from there. But it was a competitive program, and it was great that we were selected. There was 33 million requests and only 13 million awarded. So.
Well,
Yeah, very good. Situate got money in Marshfield and it was Holliston or something. It was
Leominster.
Leominster, that's what it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's such a critical repair, because if something happens to that road, for emergency services for the people that live in that area, it's really critical, and we've been living on borrowed time, so.
It
Brian
touched on
made
some
that
of
case
these.
very nicely today, just how important not only Beechwood, the street as a access to the community, but the water, the Lake Pond, et cetera. So, very good news.
Excellent.
Okay.
That's the quick update.
Selectman update. Kevin, go first.
I'm all set.
All right. Steve?
Two things just for a future agenda item. I received a letter from Nick Rosen, who has an Eagle Scout project that he'd like us to approve, because it's on public lands and Wheelwright Park. It would need our attention, so can I ask?
We all got it.
Okay, good, fair enough.
Very nice.
I asked for it to be placed on an agenda. And then secondly, I want to acknowledge a Situate family lost their son recently. You all read about it, and as a matter of fact, the funeral was held here in town. And in short order, it became very clear to the police force that the crowd that would show up for the wake was far beyond anything that was expected by the funeral home director. As a matter of fact, in talking with the chief, he estimated that 6,000 people showed up for the wake, and an additional 3,000 to 4,000 for the funeral the following day. And I simply wanted to make the point that I have to say that I was immensely impressed by the way that the police department came together very rapidly, understood the magnitude of the situation, and was able to the best of their ability, manage the traffic issues without a whole lot of understanding from the funeral coordinators what was going on, but organize the funeral the next day in such a fashion that there was minimal disruption around town, given the magnitude of the event. The sadness, of course, of the family can't be understated. Yet at the same time, I'd like to acknowledge that the police department respectfully rerouted traffic to the extent that it could without disrupting the town greatly.
Karen?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Martha?
Well, I have, one thing. I have this booklet that Hingham has, Department of Elder Service, property tax workout program, from last year. And I think this might be something that the elders could do here. Now, I don't know who to give this to. I can give it to Chris.
Okay.
Okay. And then there's something that I've actually talked to Chris about. And I run in the morning early and I check the roads and so forth. And I've had several complaints about the parking lot. There's even sand from last winter still on it. And I was thinking if the DPW could close the lot between 6:30 and 7:30 on Monday mornings and clean up the place, because there's old diapers there and all kinds of things that people drop. Once a week on this Monday morning from, I know, I particularly said that for, and shoes, there's just a lot of stuff. And I've had complaints about these things, and I think if you did it once a Monday after Monday morning, clean there, at least the complaints I'd be getting were less. And it, you know, somebody coming in town, particularly if you see sand from last winter, it's difficult to do it because usually there's car, but if you say you're gonna do it just on a Monday morning, 1 hour early, sometime now, Steve.
And work it around when they're not doing the parking lot surveying.
That's right.
For the
Well,
traffic
that's right.
study.
Well, that's what, I mean, find some time.
Yeah.
I was thinking as early, I know they start at 6, you could do it then. And that's about all. I'm glad to hear about the road, the paving has been delayed, because people have asked me, they filled in the spots, and haven't they paved? And I said, well, they're on the list.
And now you
I'll
can tell
find
them,
out.
yes.
Now I know.
Once we know a new date, everyone will know.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
The only thing I was gonna say, I have two little notes. One is that I will schedule the Eagle Scout, future Eagle Scout for a meeting soon to come in and just describe the project. And then I don't know what this says, but it just says signs, RE, primary election. So I don't know what that means.
Electronic signs?
Oh, that is exactly it, because what the Eagle Scout made me recall that an Eagle Scout who graduated from Cohasset High School maybe 2 years ago had built some sandwich boards. So it might be worth getting those queued up soon because we have a primary election on Tuesday.
We dug them out, and the kid did a great job. But we need to tweak them a little to make them a little more functional for
Okay.
other multiple kinds of events.
Sure.
And it just, unfortunately, they've been there. We know them, and we have a big sign too, which I think we want to probably place over by the transfer station. I think it's the best location. Most people go there. They'll see it. It'll be another notice of tax bills and elections and town meeting
Right,
and any
right.
other event. But we need to change the format on which the events are displayed, because it's just kind of a static, it's like a board you have to hang, so we'd have to have different boards for every event, and I think it might be a little bit.
Can
Great.
you do
And,
anything?
and we've talked about it, we just, I have to be honest, we did, Carol and I did scramble, and we were able to fix it for town meeting and town election, and there was some confusion about how it read, and so
Okay.
we sort of put them aside.
Is
I will see if we can't get,
Something
get
for
those
the
updated.
election, it's important.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll have it for next Tuesday, but
Okay,
I'll see what we can do.
fair enough.
so.
And another thing that I just came to my mind, and it's probably something for Chris, if you don't mind just jotting it down, because I'll forget, for Carol, which is, I know that the state law has changed in terms of when you can register to vote. So, like my daughter, for example, turns 18, like a week before the election in November. So I believe she's able, there's some flexibility now as to when, it would be great.
Pre-register, I think,
Yeah, whatever the new parameters are that I think are gonna enable more people to actually vote, and register to vote. I believe you used to have to, it used to be 30 days before the election, you couldn't vote, but now you can vote anytime. I just asked Scott Brown, did anybody read that? Anyway, if we could put that up on the town website at some point closer to the November election, I think it'd be great.
Hasn't the law changed so you can register the day?
Yeah, but I just don't know exactly what that,
Yeah.
can you just go up that day? I don't know that, and I wanna make sure we,
It's
It's a good-
probably something that should be on the website.
Yes.
I think we have been putting the deadlines as they've approached. I believe we've been doing
this
that.
primary was,
Yeah.
but this is kind of a new thing, so.
I'll check with Carol.
That it's not too late to register to vote, or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever the new system is.
Okay.
All right, any other comments before we are gonna go into a very brief executive session. So, town council has actually provided us with and this is probably something, again, that we should, be imparting on other committees that do go into executive session. It has a format for me to use. So I'm gonna read it. The motion is, I move that the Board of Selectmen enter into executive session to conduct strategy sessions and preparations for negotiations with non-union personnel pursuant to section 21A2 of chapter 30A of the general laws, and also pursuant to section 21A3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. So I do declare that the discussions with respect to collective bargaining or litigation could have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town. We will be discussing upcoming negotiations relating to OPEB, as well as some ongoing town litigation matters. I need a second and then a roll call vote.
Second.
Okay? The motion is seconded by Selectman Gomer. Having a second, we will now have a roll call vote.
Aye.
Yes, please state your name and then
Kevin
aye.
McCarthy, aye.
Steve Gomer, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Karen Quigley, aye.
Yes,
Okay, I get to use my gavel. Having it passed by a vote of 5-0, open session is now closed. We will reconvene in open session strictly for the purposes of adjourning. We are now in executive session. Thank you.